Drinking black tea calmly at Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 451 Rainbow Team and number 039, S first battle in England. Ron, Mama fed 2 chickens Harry. What chicken? What chicken Ron? Big hen and big cock Harry. Big hen, big cock Ron. One is busy laying eggs during the day Harry. Hey hey, hey hey Ron. An early morning whining chorus. An early morning woo woo. Woo woo. Everyone who passed by the chicken coop next to the burrow looked at the 2 brothers and sisters who were singing in a chorus while feeding the chickens and cleaning the chicken coop with caring eyes. Even Hermione and Ginny both tried to walk around. They couldn't afford to lose face. Why did the 2 of them offend Mr. Zhang again? Ruff's commander, who volunteered to help prepare for the wedding due to lack of manpower, asked Ginny. The 2 of them asked for it, Ginny said. When they suggested to Zhang that he perform in the form of an animagus at the wedding, they realized that they would end up like this. Is Mr. Zhang not here today? Rove asked after looking around for a while. He went out with Fred and George early in the morning again today, Ginny said with some dissatisfaction. The day after tomorrow is the day of the wedding, and tomorrow is the day when her natal family will visit. Mrs. Weasley kicked off the prelude to the big battle of preparations early this morning. However, the twin brothers returned to the store after a quick breakfast. At this time, their store was already full of people who responded to the Ministry of Magic's call to purchase communicators, so that the 2 of them had to borrow Bill's broomstick. A second point of sale opened on the front of the store. And Zhang Su ran away with Scarlet after grabbing a few sandwiches early in the morning. He was responsible for the installation and debugging of the command system used by the Aurors. After all, the structure of this system was designed by him. Scarlet is in charge of staff training at the Ministry of Magic. In this way, after losing several valuable labors, Ginny and the others' tasks became even heavier. Dividing line at the same time, on a street in a residential area of Manchester, a garbage truck was parked on the side of the road. A young man opened the door, jumped out of the cab, and got into a van on the other side of the road. Inside the back compartment, another driver entered the cab and continued to drive the garbage truck along the road to collect garbage. When the young man got into the car, there were already several people waiting for him at a table in the middle of the car. At this time, a cockroach crawled out from the man's trouser leg, and after crawling aside, it suddenly grew bigger, and then gradually transformed into human form. Thank you. Ben Miller, who had transformed from a cockroach, thanked the colleague who was disguised as a garbage truck driver. Ben, what's the situation in that house? Have you found the hostage? A man with a distinctive nose in the carriage asked, a wand whirling and jumping between his fingers. I found out, Mr. English. Ben Miller replied. It was a 2-story house, and there were 6 Death Eaters in total, and the hostages were locked in the basement. The door to the basement is protected by a spell, and it's not easy to open. The kidnappers plan to take the hostages away tonight. Beside a small table in the carriage, Percy Weasley, who was studying the map with others, reached out and caught the wand flying towards his red head. After returning the wand to Johnny Ingrid, he said to Ben Lee said, thank you very much for your information, Mr. Miller. Then Percy said to Johnny Ingrid, Mr. Ingrid, I think we should prepare to act, otherwise the hostages will be taken away if it is too late. After the formation of the Rainbow Squad under the International Auror Organization was completed, and after a preliminary run-in, the team began to go to the UK to train with battle. On the first day they arrived in the UK, Percy and the others received an alarm. There was a loud and abnormal noise in the home of Hogwarts Muggle Studies Professor Carrie Dibblegi last night. Carrie Dibbligi's Muggle neighbors and wizard neighbors called the police. When the police and Aurors arrived, they found signs of a fight in Carrie Dibbligi's home. So another joint action group was formed. Since the missing person this time is a professor from Hogwarts, the social impact is extremely bad, so all parties sent elite soldiers to participate, and even a rainbow squad led by Percy didn't even sit on a stool. It was arranged to be added. After a night of hard work, they finally locked the place where Carrie Dibblegi was temporarily detained. In the expanded compartment, Percy Weasley, Johnny Ingrid, and Kingsley Shacklebolt continued to listen to Ben Miller's investigative report, asking him for various details from time to time. Everyone here knows that sufficient intelligence is the basis of victory, and a large part of an operation's time is spent collecting and analyzing intelligence. I think we should launch an attack during their lunchtime," Percy said to the other two. "After they are concentrated in the restaurant, we can concentrate all our efforts to catch them all and prevent the fish that slip through the net from causing harm to the surrounding residents." After some discussion, the other two leaders agreed to Percy's plan and made a division of labor. While Percy was arranging the details of the operation to several of his teammates, Ingrid came over to find Percy. "Mr. Weasley, I have something nice for you," Ingrid said to Percy, holding a metal cylinder with a pull ring. "This is our latest shock bomb. Light can temporarily incapacitate the unprepared." In the discussion just now, it was decided that Percy would lead the Rainbow Squad to attack the restaurant directly from the outside. After attracting the attention of the Death Eaters, Kingsley Shacklebolt led the Aurors from another part of the restaurant. He broke through the wall and rushed into the restaurant, attacking the Death Eaters on both sides. On the other hand, Yingli is responsible for protecting the safety of the surrounding residents. Percy took the shock bomb and felt that he just needed it. After asking how to use it and thanking Ingrid, he said to his teammates, "When the meeting starts to act, you will be behind me and me. Keep your distance, because I'm not sure how it affects people outside the wall when it's through the wall. So when I throw it in the restaurant, you come and attack." By 12 noon, the investigators reported that the Death Eaters had really expected to arrive in the dining room en masse for dinner. A few minutes later, a vigorous figure quickly approached the house, and after avoiding several alarming spells, he came to the corner of the house. Under the scorching of a blue flame shot out from the tip of the wand. A hole the size of a head was burned in the wall instantly. Then he pulled the string, and before the Death Eaters could react, he sent the stun bomb through the hole in the wall and into the dining room at the feet of the Death Eaters. Dividing line at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a loud sound of footsteps resounded in the corridor of St. Mungo's Hospital. A group of people with red heads rushed into a ward led by Mrs. Weasley. Ms. Percy Weasley threw herself on a red-haired mummy lying on a hospital bed. "Please don't touch him, Mom." The medical practitioner standing by the hospital bed hastily stopped Mrs. Weasley with a spell. The doctor said to the anxious Mrs. Weasley, "The patient has more than 100 fractures all over his body. We have connected all his bones and given him medicine. After taking another medicine tonight, he will be able to recover tomorrow cured." After some persuasion from the medical practitioner, Mrs. Weasley calmed down a bit. Wiping her tears with a handkerchief, she asked Kingsley Shacklebolt, who was standing in the ward with his head wrapped in thick gauze, "Kingsley, who hurt Percy so badly?" Kingsley looked at the crying Mrs. Weasley, and at Percy, who was lying on the hospital bed covered in plaster and bandages like a mummy. For a moment he didn't know how to speak. Because the friendly army mistakenly provided Percy with a bomb as a shock bomb, the house was blown down after the bomb exploded, and Percy was sent flying to the roof across the street by the shock wave, and none of the Death Eaters in the restaurant were intact. The hostages held in the basement were buried alive because of the collapse of the basement, and are now lying in the opposite ward. I don't know if the family members will believe this kind of thing. Chapter 452 Become Harry. When Zhang Su walked into the kitchen of the Burrow with a pair of panda eyes and yawning, Bill, who was going to be the groom the next day, patted him on the shoulder and said, "Young people must know how to control themselves. Go. Zhang Su gave him an annoyed sideways glance. "I just came back from Newcastle, and I was busy there all night last night." When Zhang Su was sitting on the table, a breakfast floated in front of him. "Thank you, George." Zhang Su thanked George, who handed him breakfast. "How is the sales of the alarm terminal over there?" George replied while eating breakfast, "An agent came to us yesterday, and we asked them to be responsible for the retail of the regular and VIP editions. So far, only 10 units of the Supreme Edition have been sold to Gringotts." "What are the normal version, the VIP version and the Supreme version?" Ron asked curiously. George explained to Ron, "The normal version only has the most basic function of alarming horror. The VIP version has a little more functions such as clock, calendar, notebook, etc., and the Supreme version uses advanced materials to package the appearance. I have to say that the twin brothers are very talented in business, and they came up with this method this time." At this time, Zhang Su remembered what he had heard yesterday afternoon when he helped the Aurors in Sheffield install and debug the command system, and asked the others, "What happened to Percy yesterday? I heard from other Aurors that he was arrested. It exploded into more than 100 pieces, and then St. Mungo's medical staff finally glued him back. Did you go to see him? He just had more than 100 broken bones, Fred said. The doctor said he would be discharged this morning. Mom went to St. Mungo's early in the morning and she was determined to bring Percy back. As soon as Fred finished speaking, Percy's voice was heard at the door. I can move by myself, Mom honey, your injury hasn't healed yet, so don't move around. Mrs. Weasley said. After a while, Mrs. Weasley pushed the wheelchair to the dining room, and then she said to Percy in the wheelchair, you should have breakfast with everyone first. The medical doctor said you should drink more milk. Mrs. Weasley spent 5 minutes incessantly telling Percy to be safe and not to get hurt again before leaving. You look much better than yesterday, haven't you healed yet? Bill said as he handed Percy a glass of milk. If you had appeared in the pyramid yesterday, I would have taken you as a mummy. After receiving the milk, Percy said, the broken bones have grown back together, but they are not strong enough, so it's best to exercise less today, lest they break again. So as long as I gently touch it with my palm, you will have to lie on the bed again. Zhang Su's left hand turned into a giant panda's arm and kept waving beside Percy. Just as some unscrupulous people were making fun of Percy, who was handicapped, Lupin and Blake walked into the restaurant. Hey, where are the girls? Blake asked curiously. He didn't see any women outside or on the first floor. They're all upstairs, picking out tomorrow's wedding dresses for the brides, Bill replied. At this time Lupin said in a very serious voice, next, we need to discuss a problem, and that is how to disguise Harry tomorrow. Why? Harry asked suspiciously. Because there are a lot of guests coming tomorrow, we can't spell them all to keep from telling about seeing you, Lupin said to Harry, and in case any of the guests drink too much, I'm afraid something about you hiding at the burrow will get out. Then how do I disguise it? Harry asked, potion or transfiguration. I saw a red-haired muggle in a nearby village. I think you could use Polyjuice potion to make him look like a distant relative of the Wheel Eyes, said Lupin. I have a question, Professor Lupin. At this moment Zhang Su interjected, many people know the relationship between Harry, Ron, Hermione and Ginny. If there's a strange young man who often stays with the three of them tomorrow together, then others will be suspicious. Especially Ginny, unless you announce in the Daily Prophet tomorrow morning that Harry and Ginny have broken up. Otherwise, the closer relationship between the two of them will make people see the clues. That's also a problem. Lupin nodded. What about the students who pretended to be Harry? This method was quickly rejected. If the same person appeared in two places at the same time, everyone would think that there was a problem. It was a matter of Harry's safety, and no amount of caution could be overstated. Lupin and the others dared not bet that Voldemort would not find out and follow the vine to get a melon. If Harry can transform into an animagus, then he can pass off as a pet of the Wheel Eyes, Black said. His twin brothers immediately recommended to Harry the various deformed biscuits they developed, but Harry refused to follow. Just when everyone was at a loss, someone Zhang finally tore off the veil of hypocrisy and revealed the face of the devil. Or, Harry, how about you becoming a girl? Someone Zhang said, pretending not to care. In this way, it won't be strange for you to stay with Ginny, Hermione and the others. Presumably Ron won't either. Would object. Then Zhang pointed to Revescamander, who was eating melons and watching the show, and said, you can pretend to be Rove's sister. I don't think anyone will suspect a young lady who came from the United States to attend the wedding. Zhang finally said, if you change your speaking habits, I don't think even your aunt will recognize you. Harry tried to resist, but failed. Lupin did it out of safety considerations, and the twin brothers did it out of the consideration that it would not be a big deal to watch the excitement. Ron consciously told him not to express his opinion at this time, but Blake did not know why he also responded to it in the end. Showed his support, and his support became the last straw that crushed Harry. So who do you want me to be? Harry asked gloomily. Zhang Su took out a bottle of potion and put it on the table, then said to Harry, you can try this potion. It can also adjust your appearance according to your physical characteristics after changing your gender. Harry picked up the big bottle of medicine and looked at it, but the labels were all written in Chinese characters, such as Quanjingshan Pharmaceutical Factory, Mequon Township, Derry County, Guoluo Tibetan Autonomous Prefecture, Qinghai Province. I don't understand. Chapter 453 Harley, Meow Meow? Harry was engaged in a fierce ideological struggle with the medicine bottle. How do you have this kind of medicine? Harry looked at Zhang Su with 9 points of doubt and 1 point of joking. Zhang Su shrugged and replied, of course it's for disguising yourself as someone else when you need to escape. Looking at the eyes of Black, Lupin and those Wheel Eyes, who said try it quickly, Harry, who was broken, unscrewed the medicine bottle, and suffocated the whole bottle of medicine as soon as he looked up. Wait! Zhang Su, who was half a beat slower, still couldn't stop Harry from drinking the whole bottle of potion into his stomach. Zhang Su could only cover his face and said, "Harry, this bottle of medicine can last for a day if you drink a bottle cap. If you drink a bottle at once, you won't be able to change back in half a month." "What?" a clear female voice shouted in surprise. "Then I will still look like this when I return to Hogwarts." Zhang Su pointed with his fingers and replied, "At least you must still look like this when you're on the train." At this time, other people in the restaurant were already speechless, especially Lupin and Black, who were staring at Harry dumbfounded. "Lily," Lupin sighed in an incredulous tone. "The voice is the same as Lily, but the eyes are like James." This time it was Black. "What did you say?" Harry asked in surprise. "You look exactly like your mother did when she was 17, Blake said. "You have the same eyes as your father." Click click. The people in the restaurant looked at the place where the sound came from, and saw someone. Zhang took out a camera at some point and kept taking pictures of Harry. "Stop it." Harry stretched out his hand to block the lens of the camera. "What are you doing?" Zhang Su kept his camera on. He said, "Since you look a lot like your mother, why don't you take this opportunity to take a few more photos, which you can keep for collection in the future?" It's just that he couldn't say, "By the way, cheat Snape a fortune." After shooting a roll of film regardless of Harley's objection, Zhang Su said to Lupin and the others, "She still has a problem, and you must have discovered it." Lupin nodded and said, "Although her voice has changed, her tone of voice is the same as when he was a boy. It hasn't changed at all." "Okay, then I'll help her adjust her tone of speaking." After Zhang Su finished speaking, he suddenly pulled out his wand and cast a spell on Harry. "What meow?" Harry looked at Zhang Su. She didn't feel the effect of this spell on her body. "What kind of curse is this meow?" Harry looked suspiciously at the people with wrong expressions around him. "What's wrong with you all, meow? I don't think anyone will recognize her as Harry now," Zhang Su said to the others in the restaurant with satisfaction. A group of people shook their heads. Probably even if Harry's own father came, he would not be able to recognize his son now. "Excuse me, do you need to give her a pseudonym?" Rove Commander said after raising his right hand as if answering a question in class. Rove now finds that this trip to the UK is really worthwhile. Not only did he meet Harry Potter, the famous savior in the UK, but he also watched him transform into her. "She looks so much like Lily, why not use Lily's name?" Black suggested. "No, she looks too much like Lily. Calling her Lily again will arouse suspicion." Lupin shook his head and said, "Let's change the name. Just call Lucy," Zhang Su said while loading the camera with a new paper. "What does that mean?" Blake asked. "It doesn't mean much," Zhang Su said. "It's just that I know a pair of twin sisters from the United States, and their names are Lily and Lucy." After Zhang Su finished speaking, there was a nostalgic look in his eyes. "How about paying a sum of money to the People's Education Society when they compile new English textbooks in N years, so that Lily and Han I will finally get married?" After Rove said, "Many girls in the United States are called this name. The pseudonym Harley will use tomorrow is definitely Lucy Scamander. Her identity is the famous magizoologist Newt Scamander granddaughter." Ron looked at Harry for a while, then at Rove for a while, then scratched his head and said, "Why do I think it looks like my buddy married you?" Everyone in the restaurant spewed out a mouthful of tea. And Luo Fu blushed and scratched his head and said, "If only I could marry such a beautiful wife in the future." After Zhang Su heard Luo Fu's words, a flash of inspiration flashed in his mind, and he finally remembered who this guy was. According to J.K. Rowling's supplementary explanation, this guy will become Luna's husband in the future. Luo Fu found that his words seemed to be a little ambiguous to others. Just when he was about to explain clearly, he suddenly felt a chill behind his back, and then he saw Zhang Su looking at him with a kind of expression that he had never seen before: indifference. Could Mr. Zhang be jealous? Rove couldn't help thinking. Then his cold sweat broke out. The guy who can fight the fire dragon can't afford to provoke him at this time. Zhang Su put on a smiling face that he thought would make people feel happy, and said to Luo Fu, "Rofu, you can try to pursue her these few days. Don't you go crazy while you are young, and think about it later. When you are frivolous and find yourself old, you will regret it." But in Rove's eyes, at this moment, Zhang said to himself with a hidden knife in his smile, "You dare to pursue her." At this time, Aunt Adam's voice sounded at the door of the restaurant. "Who does our Rove want to pursue?" Zhang Su pointed to Harry and said, "This is Lucy." Aunt Adams followed Zhang Su's finger to look at Harry. Her eyes lit up, and she said firmly, "I agree to this marriage." "Who do you agree to marry?" Mrs. Weasley asked curiously. She was following Aunt Adams with the girls who had been choosing their wedding dress upstairs. "Dear Molly, from which family is this Miss Lucy? I think she is a good match for our Rove." Aunt Adams asked Mrs. Weasley, pointing at Harry. Yeah, Mr. Zhang and the twin brothers, who are afraid of chaos in the world, nodded and said, "Which family's girl is so beautiful?" Another middle-aged aunt came over and asked. Lily Scarlet shouted in disbelief with her eyes wide open. "No." Scarlet immediately realized something was wrong, because she saw the glasses on the table in front of Harry and the label on the empty medicine bottle. She looked at Zhang, who was holding back a smile, and immediately guessed a general idea of what happened in her heart. "I'm Harry, Mrs. Weasley, meow," Harry said to Mrs. Weasley with a bitter face. At this moment, Ginny, who came in, was so surprised that her jaw almost dropped. "How did you become like this?" Ginny asked, staring at Harry, who was more ruthless than herself. At this moment, Hermione, Fleur and the others also walked in, and began to watch Harry. Clemens Posey tugged at Bill's sleeve and asked, "Honey, I think it's okay to change to a bridesmaid tomorrow." After some explanations, Mrs. Weasley and the others figured out what the hell these men were doing. And Aunt Adams kept saying it was a pity, it was a pity. However, everyone was satisfied with the result of such a disguise. Obviously, no one after that could recognize Hallie's real identity. At this time, Percy, who was sitting in a wheelchair, suddenly frowned and said, "Harry, are you going to live in Ron's room for the rest of this time? Can't you?" As soon as he said the first word, Ron's instinct immediately told him to shut up immediately. "Then let her live with Ginny," Zhang Su said, fearing that the world would not be chaotic. "Harry, you'd better live in Black's tent," said Mrs. Weasley. At this moment, Hermione asked Harry, "Harry, do you have the dress for tomorrow's wedding, and matching shoes, jewelry, and makeup?" Seeing Hermione counting things with her fingers at tomorrow's wedding as a girl, a layer of cold sweat broke out on Harry's forehead. Only then did Zhang Su realize that Harry's upper body is now hollow. "Then let's go out and buy tomorrow's dress and jewelry for Harry right now," Hermione suggested. "No need, meow," Harry said hurriedly, waving his hands. "I'll just wear whatever I want, meow." "No," Hermione and Ginny shouted at the same time. "The skirt you're wearing is not suitable, and it will be easy for people to find out." Ginny said with certainty. It's just the look in her eyes that tells others that her motives don't seem to be that simple. It's just that it's safe for Harry to go out now. Mrs. Weasley didn't deny that she should dress up for Harry, she was only worried about Harry's safety. Is it okay for someone to follow and protect? Ginny looked at Zhang Su, Lupin and Black and asked them. Several girls immediately agreed to go with them, they could protect Hallie. But Zhang Su hurriedly shook his head and said, "I was busy last night in Newcastle with the Aurors. I need to get some sleep later, otherwise I would fall asleep walking." "Just kidding. Shopping with such a group of girls, and buying clothes and jewelry, it's no wonder he isn't exhausted by then." Someone apparently thought of that too. "Bill, I'll stay, and Clemens's family will arrive later." Charlie, he went out early in the morning to pick up his guests, and he wasn't home. Percy was a little grateful that Ingrid had given him the wrong bomb yesterday. There is a saying that Percy being bombed may not be a blessing. Fred and George said they wanted to look at the store, and this time the business with the Ministry of Magic could not go wrong. Lupin euphemistically stated that there are some very important things to be busy in the Order of the Phoenix. "I'll follow along, I can take care of it then." Scarlet said she still has a new bank card waiting to be swiped. Then Blake said that I should follow suit. In the end, Ron and Rove, who didn't know what would happen next, also said they would go together. Chapter 454 Pony and Number 039, S Shopping Trip. In a large department store in London, many customers from all over the world shuttled among the many shops, choosing their favorite products. In a coffee shop in the mall, Draco Malfoy handed a £50 note to a waiter. The waiter just introduced to him which items in the long shopping list in his hand should be purchased in which store. If you buy a lot of items, you can go to the service counter on the first floor and ask them all to send someone to help take things, and let the waiters in the store take the goods to the customer service center, and then mail these goods to any country on the earth, of course. The premise is that your purse is thick enough. Malfoy finally confirmed the contents of the list, percent of which belonged to baby products, and the other, were expensive daily necessities for all ages. What Malfoy's mother had said this morning when she handed him the shopping list came back to his mind. Draco, you have to remember that any relationship needs to be maintained carefully. Our family has been in bad luck in recent years, but no one has jumped out to take advantage of us. It is because of your father's meticulous care over the years. The result of maintaining a huge network of relationships. Although you have given enough money to the family who adopted Alsace and Gina, it is not enough. If we don't care about their brothers and sisters, and don't thank that family, then as time goes by, the Malfoy family will be in their hearts. It will only become a strange term in my heart. You have to remember that although the brothers and sisters Arthas and Gina are the children of the Dark Lord, they are also my nephew and niece, and your cousin and cousin. They are our few blood relatives. And you have to treat the couple who adopted them as your closest uncle and aunt, and treat their children as your own younger brothers. Although we are far away in the UK, it is difficult to go to the village to develop relationships with them in person, but the etiquette we should have is still indispensable. You go to the Muggle Mall in London today to buy gifts according to this list, and then you letters written in the name of I wrote to Mr. Zhang last month and asked him about the hobbies of people in the village who can talk, and then I made this shopping list based on this. Remember, the gift you choose must be expensive, so that the other party can feel that you value them. Don't worry about the money at home, my private money can handle it. Malfoy left a children's toy store with this shopping list, and just bought several toys suitable for babies according to the recommendation of the clerk, although he can scan the goods according to the catalog, but this kind of favor gift is obviously the best choice. Malfoy walked into a children's clothing store nearby, and the enthusiastic waiter greeted him immediately. Malfoy handed the note with the physical parameters of the two babies to the waiter, and said, I want to buy some clothes for my 2-month-old brother and sister to wear from now until winter. Help me choose bar. The parameters on the note were measured by the doctor in the village infirmary when they first arrived in Zhangsu's hometown. The waiter took the note, looked at it for a while and said to Malfoy, Sir, babies grow very fast at this time. I suggest you choose a larger size, and you can choose a larger size for winter clothes. The waiter saw that Malfoy was still young, so he probably didn't know this knowledge, so he explained it to him before choosing clothes. Malfoy didn't know this at the time, and he thought it made sense, so he said blankly, well, then choose according to what you said, starting with the most expensive one. Malfoy has always discriminated against Muggles, and he did his best to restrain himself by not making a mockery today, except that the secrecy law would not allow him to reveal his identity. Everything he does today is based on what Professor Zhang taught in the Muggle Studies class in the 3rd grade. However, in the eyes of that young waiter, this is the image that a domineering president should have. During the whole purchasing process, she had already mentally filled in the content of a 20-word novel, especially after Malfoy took a fancy to several sets of baby pajamas with snakes as the main element and not cheap in the store. The waiter thought he was caring for himself and making a profit for himself. Period. Just when Malfoy finished paying and was about to ask the waiter to take 2 large bags of clothes mainly in the color of green Slytherin to the customer service center, he heard a somewhat familiar voice from behind the store door. What are you here to see? Malfoy could recognize the voice of his cousin Sirius Black. Of course I choose clothes for my future child, otherwise what would you do here? This impatient voice was more familiar to Malfoy, because he had heard it in math class for several years. You have a child? Blake asked in surprise. After he graduates, I will go to do test tube babies with him. Do you have any opinions? Scarlet said, waiter, help me wrap this pink suit and this crimson suit. Malfoy's grievances towards the few of them are clear, and he is not optimistic about Black, because his trip to the East has allowed him to see many things that he cannot see in England. However, a thought has been floating in his mind: if he writes a romance novel based on these people, it might be able to alleviate the family's financial situation. Malfoy didn't want to cause trouble. He hurriedly left the children's clothing store after completing the formalities while the other two turned their backs to him. At this time, Malfoy's mind was clouded, and he didn't know if he would be able to return to Hogwarts to continue studying next month. After learning the news of the Hogwarts management reshuffle, Malfoy waited for an expulsion notice from Hogwarts. He knew that after his involvement in the assassination of Dumbledore was exposed, Hogwarts would definitely expel him. It's just that it's been half a month since he left school, and he still hasn't received the notice of his expulsion. While he is suffering, there is also a glimmer of hope in his heart. Maybe they were going to announce my expulsion at the start of term banquet, Malfoy thought. Malfoy, head down and hurried to the next store, didn't even notice that he was passing not far behind Ron. At this time, Ron was holding Ginny's shopping bag in his left hand and Hermione's shopping bag in his right hand, and he didn't notice that Malfoy, who made him gnash his teeth, passed behind him. Chapter 455 Xiaomayan number 039, S Unforgettable Encounter. Student Xiaoma decides to eat something to change his mood, but when he comes out of an ice cream shop after a big meal, he can't wait to ride a broomstick to the public bathroom. After releasing the memory, Malfoy thought about going down and buy a box of cigars for the old village chief first, and then buy a bottle of wine for the village secretary. There was a bang sound, and then there was the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. When Malfoy saw the person he knocked down, his heart suddenly beat faster and faster. The last time he felt this way was 6 years ago when he was on the train to and from Hogwarts and was about to get into the carriage to meet him. It was in Harry Potter the feeling came so suddenly and so strongly that he didn't even notice why a young girl was standing in the doorway of the men's bathroom. Paragodfall does not exist. Are you okay? Malfoy hurriedly helped the girl in a sky blue dress who was knocked down by him. Sorry, did I hurt you? The girl recovered from her stupor, saw the appearance of the person who had knocked her down and helped her up. She hurriedly took a few steps back, and then accidentally twisted her foot. Sorry, I really didn't mean to hurt you. Malfoy quickly supported the girl who was about to fall because of her sprained ankle. Malfoy took a look at the girl's sprained right foot and the high-heeled shoes she was wearing, and said, I'll take you to the coffee shop over there for a rest. My mother said that wearing such shoes can easily hurt you. Feet. No need, the girl refused. My friend will come over later. Malfoy looked at the door of the men's bathroom next to him, thinking that she was waiting for someone inside, so he said, but I was the only one in there just now. I think we can go there and rest for a while, and wait until your feet are better. Go find your friend. Then Malfoy forced a crying girl to a coffee shop not far away. Enthusiastic people walking on the road saw the girl's expression and thought that someone was robbing the civilian girl. But when they saw the girl limping and the high heels on her feet, they thought the girl's expression was it hurts. At this time, Malfoy, who was helping the girl to walk to the coffee shop, played back in his mind all the words he had heard in Hogwarts over the years about how to pick up girls. Being thick-skinned in front of girls, Xiaoma thinks he has thick skin now. If you have difficulties, you must overcome them, and if you don't have difficulties, you will create difficulties. Now the girl encounters difficulties. Don't reveal your ambition from the very beginning, even if you have already thought about the name of the child in the future. When you see the other party for the first time, Xiaoma decides that the next task is to ask the girl's name first, and then use the magic spell to heal her feet. Always be polite to girls, no matter how it goes. Pony thinks his manners are impeccable. Can't use love potion. Classmate Xiaoma wants to use it now, but he didn't bring it with him. When he walked to the door of the coffee shop, Malfoy said to the waiter, my friend's foot is sprained, please arrange a place for us where no one will be disturbed. Beauty by the side, Malfoy used the word please to a muggle for the first time in years. The waiter at the coffee shop immediately figured out the situation, and immediately took the two of them to an empty booth in the shop. Malfoy saw that it was a bit hidden here, and the surrounding site was subtly blocked by the decorations in the store, so he put the girl who had been supporting him on the seat. I'll get an ice pack for this lady. The waiter left after finishing speaking. This kind of urgency for customers is what their manager asked for. The competition is too fierce now, and they must try their best to satisfy customers. I'm really sorry today. Malfoy said to the girl sitting across from him apologetically. By the way, my name is Draco Malfoy, may I know your name? The girl struggled for a moment, then said, my name is Lucy Scamander. At this moment, in the depths of Harry's heart, there are countless alpacas playing wave punches. At first, I finally made up my mind to accept the matter of pretending to be a woman, but I didn't expect that it would be the beginning of hell. What is buying a dress for yourself, Ghost? Why is Jenny so excited? Thinking of Jenny's non-stop selection of shoes, skirts, and even lingerie for herself just now, Harry's heart trembled at this moment. I'm not new on one. Harley once protested to Ginny, why do you become like a big cat who saw pork belly? Ginny then ignored Harry's protests and pulled her into the dressing room. When Harley, who had changed into women's clothing, came out of the dressing room, she said to the crowd waiting outside, I'm going to the bathroom, don't follow me, and walked away. Harley subconsciously walked towards the men's bathroom. When she reached the door and realized that she was a woman, she was knocked down in a daze. Then she came to a deeper level of hell. The person who knocked me down was Malfoy, and my wand was handed over to Ron when I was changing clothes. Because Harley was afraid that Malfoy would summon Voldemort after her identity was revealed, she could only continue to pretend, hoping that others would quickly find out what was going on here. However, the careless teammates were picking out dresses for Harry in the store at the moment, and no one noticed that Malfoy helped Harry leave. When Ron and the others came to their senses, Harry and the others had already entered the coffee shop, and Ron and the others thought that Harry was still in the bathroom. In the coffee shop, after learning the other party's name, Malfoy asked uncertainly, "Is the famous magizoologist Mr. Newt Scamander part of your family?" "He's my grandfather," Harry replied. At this time, Malfoy's heart was as happy as a flower. If the other party was a muggle, he would have spent a round of brainstorming, but she was also a wizard, so it would save a lot of trouble. "My grandfather Abraxas Malfoy and your grandfather used to be classmates at Hogwarts, and they have a very good relationship." Malfoy began to get close to Harry cheerfully. At this time, Harry thought he in his heart. Malfoy had a look on his face. In those days, a Slytherin would have a good relationship with a Hufflepuff. At this moment, the waiter at the coffee shop loosened the ice pack. "Give me a cappuccino." Malfoy asked the waiter and then asked Harry, "What would you like to drink, Miss Scamander?" "No, there's no need." Harry quickly refused. What she wanted most now was for someone to find her, and then she ran away immediately. But Malfoy took her performance as shyness, so without waiting for her to refuse, he said to the waiter, "Then have 2 cappuccinos." Malfoy remembered hearing people say that most girls would not be disgusted with good-looking coffee like cappuccino. Then Malfoy said to Harry, "Please accept my apology to you." Malfoy saw the waiter leave, and no one noticed, so he said to Harry, "Let me treat your feet first." Harry's face turned pale immediately, remembering that a half-baked wizard healed his broken hand back then, and as a result, his hand became a boneless elbow if Malfoy treats himself for fun. Just as Harry was about to refuse, he found that his sprained foot was being lifted up by Malfoy, and then a cool feeling penetrated into the originally burning and painful ankle, and soon his ankle stopped hurting. Just now Malfoy bravely picked up Harry's slender, white calf, and healed her sprain with a healing spell. "I meditate in my heart that now is not the time, and I can't lose the big because of small things." Malfoy resisted the temptation to look up and see the other's round thighs, stood up and said to Harry, "Is it better, Scar Miss Mander?" Before Harry could speak, a man suddenly appeared behind Malfoy, pointed his wand at his kidney, and said angrily, "What did you do to my sister?" Malfoy was surprised at first, and then overjoyed. The person who came was an uncle, not a rival in love. It seemed that there was still something to talk about. When Harley saw the rescuers coming, she immediately got up and ran away. The pressure was converted into motivation so that she could soak fast even wearing high heels, leaving the 2 men staring at each other in the coffee shop. "This is the waiter coming over with 2 cups of cappuccino," Malfoy said to the people behind him. "Mr. Scamander, why don't we sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk slowly?" Chapter 456. Do you still trust me, Mr. Zhang? When Harry and his party returned to the village of Outery St. Catchpole before dinner, they saw Zhang Su fighting with some owls. They were sent by Hogwarts to give Zhang Su and his students book lists and other documents for the next semester. These few owls flew around the village from morning to night without finding their destination. When Zhang Su appeared outside the protection range of the burrow, the owl responsible for looking for him landed helplessly at his feet, and then looked for Ha. The Lee Trio and Jenny's owls also flew over. It's just that these owls were dizzy from hunger. If Zhang Su didn't give them food, they wouldn't let Zhang Su untie the letters tied to their feet. Even if they were killed, then they were all knocked out by Zhang Su. When Zhang Su was about to walk back with a stack of letters, he saw Harley and the others returning from shopping, so he hurried forward to distribute the letters. "Ron, this is your letter." Zhang Su handed him a letter with Ron's name on it. The weak Ron didn't say anything after thanking Zhang Su, but just opened the book list silently. Then Zhang Su handed her 2 letters with Hermione's name on them, and said at the same time, "This is a letter from the president of our female student union." Regardless of the elated Hermione, after Zhang Su gave her Ginny's letter, he glanced at Harry, who was dolled up next to him, and then continued to say to Ginny, "These 2 are Harry's letters, wait for Haley. When Lee comes back, you can pass it on to him." Harley, who was still expressionless just now, snatched the letter from Zhang Su's hand, and then gave him a hard look. Seeing the coquettish tally, Zhang hurriedly went to Gabriel to stabilize his three views. While Zhang Su took the snacks that Gabriel had specially sold to him, he listened to Fu Rong counting her achievements in shopping malls today. When a group of people approached the burrow, they were surprised that a large number of guests gathered around the burrow, and it seemed very lively for a while. All the guests from abroad arrived earlier today: the family of Clemens Posey from France, the family of Tonya from Russia, the entire Quidditch national team coached by Charlie from China, together with Aunt Adams and Rove Scamander from the United States. The 5 permanent members of the United Nations have gathered together. In addition, there are many colleagues from Africa and other places that Bill used to work in Gringotts, and colleagues from all over Europe when Charlie used to work in the Dragon Farm. Such a large group of people almost made up the European battlefield of World War II. "Rolf, come here." When he was about to enter the courtyard of the burrow, Zhang Su called Luo Fu aside. "What kind of job does Ms. Adams do?" Zhang Su asked him this question that he had held back for a long time. Rove, who had heard a lot about Zhang's special hobbies in the past 2 days, suddenly became alert. He replied, "Aunt Adams is an Auror of the Magic Council." "I see," Zhang Su said. "Then do you know what she was doing 30 years ago?" Rove, who didn't know that he had suffered a small spell from Zhang Su, replied truthfully, "I don't know. I just heard from my mother that Aunt Adams was sent by the Magic Council to work with Nomad when she was young." Zhang Su couldn't get any further answers, so he let Rove leave. After Rove left, Lu Ping came over. The conversation between Zhang Su and Rove just now did not avoid him. "Is there a problem with Ms. Adams?" Lupin asked. Recently, Lupin and Black's task was to be responsible for Potter's safety, which made him a little suspicious. "Do you still believe my words?" Zhang Su asked with some discomfort. Now the Order of the Phoenix regards the burrow as its headquarters, but those members who often appear look at Zhang Su with deep suspicion, which makes Zhang Su very unhappy. And NBSP, it's not impossible to tell them about Lent the Elder One to Voldemort that night, but after Zhang Su realized their attitude towards him and some extreme remarks, he just forcibly gave it to him like the protagonist in some online novels. "I lowered my IQ, so that things that could have been explained clearly continue to be misunderstood." Lupin just said calmly, "The letter left by Dumbledore tells us that no matter how the situation changes, you can be absolutely trusted. Obviously Dumbledore didn't expect me to meet the mysterious man in front of his tomb, and you caught me right away." Zhang Su said to Lupin, "Will you still believe me?" Lupin was silent for a while and said, "We believe in Dumbledore. He said that you can trust absolutely, then you can trust absolutely." There was nothing wrong with Lupin's words, but Zhang Su didn't plan to take the Order of the Phoenix to act together, so he didn't say anything. "Ms. Adams is the Auror of the United States Council of Magic, and she is a very powerful Auror." Zhang Su said to Lupin, "I never thought that Tonya Adams, who made her name in Vietnam back then, would be West Lady Lee's cousin. Is she great?" Lupin asked. "For her strength, refer to Mad-Eye Moody when dealing with people, and refer to Percy when referring to blowing up houses." Zhang Su returned to the garden of the burrow after finishing speaking. Seeing Zhang Su leave, Lu Ping also walked towards Black. "The wedding will be held tomorrow, and tonight is the time for the couples to hold a bachelor party to bid farewell to their single life." Tonight's reception was divided into 3 venues. The men's reception organized by the groom-to-be was held in Black's tent, and the ladies' reception organized by the bride-to-be was held in Scarlet's tent. The noisy guests were received by Mr. and Mrs. Weasley at the burrow. So today the burrow's kitchen was extremely busy, and many guests volunteered to help. Zhang Su left the burrow just now to purchase some materials. As soon as Zhang Su entered the kitchen, a bald head said to him, "Davrish, I will leave these carrots to you. You can peel them and cut them into pieces." "No problem, Comrade Yuri," Zhang Su said after taking the basket of carrots in Yuri's hand. While attacking the carrot gate with Imperial kitchen knife, Zhang Su chatted with Yuri, who was processing onions and tomatoes next to him. "My poor brother Boris, he's only 2 months away from seeing his granddaughter little Tonya in her wedding dress," Yuri said as he chopped an onion. "Boris is the dearest of my family and me. Good friends, we participated in that war together, and after the war we went to Lubicane together. At that time, if he hadn't blocked the enemy's reinforcements, I would have burned more than my hair by Grindelwald." After the two chatted about the war for a while, Yuri looked at the kitchen knives flying in front of Zhang Su, and said, "When I was in North Korea, I saw a volunteer soldier from your country who could manipulate 36 dynamite packs to blow up Yankee tanks. I counted them one by one. At that time, about 3 platoons of tanks from the Yankees braved their own gunfire and prepared to drive to the front of the position, and then he flew over with overwhelming explosive packages, blowing up all the tanks and the infantry behind them. And then when we started making dinner, he was manipulating the kitchen knife like you to peel and dice the whole battalion of potatoes. He told me that was the best way to practice, and he said when the war was over, he's going to be a cook. Zhang Su just listened to Yuri telling stories from many years ago, and cooked a big pot of borscht with him. After considering everyone's dining habits tonight, apart from Zhang Su who contributed a stewed lion's head, the rest are made with spicy roast chicken, pan-fried sturgeon, beef pie, veal stewed in white sauce, and cassoulet, charcoal grilled lamb kebabs, stews and borscht and other British, French and Russian-style dishes. Chapter 457 Night. The moon and stars are scarce, and the owl flies south at night. On the grass outside the burrow, Percy, in a wheelchair, led out an owl. Then he stood up from the wheelchair and moved his body aside. You can get out of the wheelchair now. Zhang Su, who was pushing the wheelchair and Percy, asked in surprise. I drank medicine and milk as water all day today. No matter how serious the injury is, I can heal. Percy said, it's just that my mother doesn't allow me to get out of the wheelchair. I'm tired after sitting in the wheelchair all day. Why didn't you say it earlier? Zhang Su said with black lines, I pushed you so far. I see you're too enthusiastic, so I'm sorry to discourage you. Percy said dancing youth dish degree Cyrillic letter degree Cyrillic letter degree Cyrillic letter degree. After Percy finished the whole set of dancing youth, flying ideals, youthful vigor, and times are calling, he was so tired that he lay motionless on the grass. Is it appropriate not to tell the Order of the Phoenix about her plan? Percy, who was lying on the grass panting, asked. Of course it's appropriate. Zhang Su sat aside and said, as the saying goes, if you want to deceive the enemy, you must first deceive your own people. The members of the Order of the Phoenix have been targeted, and the behavior that is different from usual will make them feel ashamed. The Death Eaters are alert, especially at this critical time. Forget it, I'll take another gamble with you. Percy said, whether your judgment is correct or not, it's both good and bad for me. If I'm wrong, everyone can at least experience a grand and happy wedding. Zhang Su said indifferently. After a while, Percy said to Zhang Su, it's not good if you don't go to the reception tonight. Zhang Su shook his head and said, it's okay, Bill and Charlie thought I was at the burrow. Then he sighed, and continued, I felt a little uneasy before, so I did a divination, and the result was good luck. Oh, your current divination still needs to be looked at in reverse? Percy asked. What could be more auspicious than thwarting the actions of the Death Eaters and the mysterious man? Zhang Su said. Percy felt that what Zhang Su said made sense. If the Death Eaters really come tomorrow, what cards do you have? Percy asked. I won't tell you. Zhang Su said, we'll see the situation at that time. I have some whole cards that I can't let you know. The Muggle government is very dissatisfied with some of the whole cards you brought. Percy said, it's just that they think you are still useful, so they don't know. Zhang Su shrugged his shoulders and said nothing. When the British government focused on the domestic magic world, conflicts in the dark between the two sides were inevitable. Before this, the British magic community was regarded as an independent force. Zhang Su and the forces behind him could win over a group of people and bury some nails in it a few years in advance, but in the long run, the magic community cannot escape the government's grasp. Therefore, the domestic approach is to try to cultivate a group of pro-China people among wizards. Percy stood up and patted the grass clippings on his body, and said to Zhang Su, I'll go back and have a drink, do you want to go? Just take your wheelchair with you. Zhang Su said, I'll go back later. Percy ignored him and walked towards the burrow without looking back. If he took the wheelchair back again, he would definitely be pressed on it by his mother again. Zhang Su cast a spell on the wheelchair beside him, making it follow Percy by itself. The weather is clear tonight, without a cloud in the night sky. The burrow is located away from the city, without much light pollution around it. Zhang Su lay on the grass, quietly watching the Milky Way running through the north and south sky in the night sky. I don't know how long it took, maybe a few minutes, maybe a few hours. A figure came to his side, and then lay down on the grass next to him, using his chest as a pillow. By the way, Zhang Su scratched Fu Rong's head with his hand, then stretched out his other hand to hold her hand. The two didn't speak, They just quietly looked at the stars and the Milky Way in the night sky in a daze. A gust of night wind blew by, and Fu Rong's hair was caressing Zhang Su's face with the wind. After a while, the two could only hear the sound of light breathing and the beating of the heart. What broke the tranquility between the two was a shooting star across the sky. Have you ever made a wish on a shooting star? Fu Rong asked softly. Meteors are fleeting, and wishing on them is not as good as wishing on comets, such as Comet Halebop that has been hanging in the sky some time ago. Zhang Su said. For Zhang Su's unsightly behavior from time to time, Fu Rong pinched his belly angrily. While stretching out his empty hand as if trying to grasp the Milky Way in the night sky, Zhang Su continued to say to Fu Rong, a shooting star is just an insignificant small stone floating in the vast universe, and the Milky Way we see before our eyes is just a small stone. It is the most magical and magnificent existence in this universe. Perhaps in a corner of this galaxy, there are also two intelligent creatures like us looking at this colorful galaxy. A certain person's level of love talk has never been higher than that, and often it becomes a popular science lecture. But fortunately, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and Fu Rong can now listen to Zhang Su's popular science lectures as love stories. At least some fresh content he pops up from time to time can make people very happy. What do you think is outside the universe? Fu Rong asked following Zhang Su's popular science lecture. Zhang Su was silent for a while, and then said, maybe there are more other universes, just like rooms in a building. Maybe some universes have no magic, and maybe some universes have more colorful magic than ours. Did you say that people will go to another universe after death? Fu Rong asked. Zhang Su scratched Furin's head again, and said, when you go online, read less novels written by Lao Jin. His novels are just wonderful nonsense. What kind of protagonist is reincarnated into another world full of people after saving lives in a fire? In the magic world, in order to invade other worlds, the archmages in that world opened the time-space door to Zurai, the protagonist's hometown, and so on. Just watch it for fun. What if he gets caught? Furing said, if you go to another universe, will you wait for me to find you? Zhang Su sighed deeply. Furing's head on his chest rose and fell with his breathing. He knew that Fleur was worried about his life and death with Voldemort and the others here in England. Why doesn't he know that she has been worrying about him thousands of miles away? Zhang Su pinched Fu Rong's face, and then said, don't think about it, I'm still waiting to go back and have a basketball team with you. Chapter 458. As the sun rose the next day, the burrow began to come alive with the crowing of roosters in the henhouse. After breakfast, the bridesmaids and ladies began a lengthy grooming session in Scarlet's red tent, while the best men and grooms changed into gowns in Blake's black tent. As the best men of the two brothers, Fred and George, checked each other's dresses and appearances on the other side of the room, and complained that their own wedding would definitely not be so cumbersome in the future, Ron and Rove were in the room preparing the couple's rings. Harry, who was in charge of this task with Ron, was now in the ladies' area, so Rove happily accepted the task. In the orchard outside the burrow, Mrs. Weasley directed several enthusiastic members of the Order of the Phoenix to make the final arrangements for the wedding scene. Luna, who was standing in front of the dressing table used by her mother during her lifetime, took a pearl necklace from Zhang Su and put it on her neck, then stood up slowly, turned around, and then took 2 steps forward. Degree BD Zhang Su and Mr. Lovergate also praised Luna, who was wearing a light yellow dress, crystal high heels, and some appropriate jewelry. Then Zhang Su took Luna 1 step ahead to the wedding venue. Mr. Lovergate said that these old people need to arrive later. Zhang Su came to Luna's house early this morning. He barely slept last night. He mainly came to have breakfast, secondly to dress up Luna, and finally to remind Mr. Lovergate not to wear the Deathly Hallows sign, so as not to be branded as borscht by Tanya's relatives. On the way to the burrow, Zhang Su met his aunt. After saying hello, Chu quietly said to his eldest nephew, Cedric said that the preparation of the generator is going well and it can be started at any time. After Zhang Su nodded, he turned the topic to today's wedding. When preparing for 2:30, the 3 of Zhang Su and the others came to the gate of the orchard. Ron and Rove stood by the gate, receiving and guiding the guests to their seats at the gate according to wedding customs. When Zhang Su walked to the door, Ron brought several young girls from France into the venue by speaking French that neither Zhang Su nor the visitors could understand. Hello, Rove, where are our seats? Zhang Su greeted Rove. 5 seconds later, Luo Fu stared blankly at the people beside Zhang Su, and did not respond to Zhang Su's words. Greek letter delta after being hit by Zhang Su's lightning that had the same effect as an electric mosquito swatter, Luo Fu reacted tremblingly. "Oh, Mr. Zhang, please follow me with these two beautiful ladies." Rove made a textbook invitation gesture. After walking 2 steps, Luo Fu asked the beautiful woman on the left of Zhang Su, who was dressed like a flower, "Beautiful lady, may I have the honor to know your name?" Zhang Su stepped sideways to Rove's side, put his arms around his shoulders and said, "Don't make trouble with her, she is my aunt." "No way, she doesn't look very old." Luo Fu asked Zhang Su in a low voice. "Your Aunt Adams also looks very young," Zhang Su said. Rove understood in seconds that it is not uncommon for witches to be elderly but look very young these days. But at this time Percy came over and pulled Zhang Su away. Zhang Su could only let Rove take Chu and Luna to the seat. "Everything is ready." Percy left after saying a word. At this moment, Ron walked into the venue with Scarlet when they had Zhang Su by his side. Scarlet put his arms around Zhang Su's hand and said to Ron, "I'll just follow him." Then Ron, who was used to this, brought the two of them to Zhang Su's seat. Zhang Su's invitation was sent by Charlie and Tanya, and his seat was with the players of the Chinese Quidditch team coached by Charlie. These team members got to know Zhang Su last night, and a few of them got to know each other a little better. When they saw Zhang Su bringing the young girl in the pink dress over, they joked with him. Shangwen Yuan Chao, director of the 5th Sports Department of the Small Ball Sports Management Center of the National Sports Committee, said to Zhang Su, "Xiao Zhang, why are the girls around you more beautiful than the other?" At this time, Scarlet still made a gesture and leaned on Zhang Su's arm. Then the team's goalkeepers Winnet and Julian also joked. When he entered the gate just now, he followed 2 other girls. Mr. Zhang could only reply while wiping cold sweat, "Very good, very good." At this moment, Director Wu of the sports committee, who was a little familiar with Zhang Su, asked, "Xiao Zhang, where's your wife? Why isn't she with you?" Zhang Su sat down and replied, "Coach Wei's sister-in-law decided to add a bridesmaid last night, so my wife went to make up the number to be a bridesmaid for Coach Wei's wife." Everyone chatted and waited for the wedding to start. During the period, Hagrid broke a few chairs because he sat in the wrong position, and then Zhang Su said to the people next to him, "That big guy is a professor in our school, but he is not very good outside the classroom." Director Wu at the side suddenly became interested, and he asked Zhang Su, "What class does he teach? Is it physical education?" "No." Zhang Su shook his head and said, "The only physical education class in our school is to learn to ride a flying broom in the 1st grade. He teaches those magical animals." Director Wu nodded and said, "Indeed, only such a big man can hold those animals down." At this time, Shangwen Yuan Chao asked, "Are there any other professors of yours who came to the wedding today?" Zhang Su looked around for a while, then pointed to the seat on the other side of the red carpet and said, "The one with gray hair is our defense against the dark arts professor, and beside him is our lady who is changing the color of her hair. It's his wife. On the other side of him is the new professor of transfiguration." Shangwen Yuan Chao looked over there for a while, and then said, "That defense against the dark arts professor of yours seems to have some stories." Zhang Su nodded, and then said, "He was bitten by a werewolf when he was a child, and he also became a werewolf. He was cured a few years ago." "No wonder." Shangwen Yuan Chao said, "It's a pity that I didn't get to see the demeanor of your old principal." Director Wu said, "Are there any other professors?" Zhang Su pointed to Scarlet beside him, and said, "Teachers of mathematics. Unfortunately, this time is not 20 years later, otherwise someone will definitely make fun of him with students are bold, teachers are on maternity leave." Zhang Su didn't explain, then pointed to himself, and said, "The boy is not talented, and he has a teaching assistant. When the professor can't teach, I have to take over." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 459. The sound of music sounded the signal to start the wedding. The beehive-like buzzing and laughter in the venue disappeared in an instant as if someone had pressed the mute button, and some guests who had left their seats returned to their seats one after another. Zhang Su also stopped talking with the delicate couple who came to the wedding as guests of the Posey family, and hurried back to his seat. Only then did Zhang Su know that the Percy family and the Delacour family were somewhat distantly related, but the two families hadn't moved around for many years, distant relatives. The newly dressed Wheeleyes first walked slowly into the venue along the purple carpet, smiling as brightly as today's sunshine. The couple kept waving to their relatives and friends. Moments after the Wheeleyes took their seats, with the sound of new music, the groom Bill and Charlie, accompanied by Fred and George, who looked exactly the same as best men, came to the front of the podium already covered with flowers. At this time, the sound of music in the venue suddenly stopped, and all the guests stood up and turned to the entrance to welcome the arrival of the brides. As the main music of the wedding sounded, two pairs of flower girls from France and Russia from the families of the two brides were the first to enter the venue. They wore miniature bridal gowns, symbolizing the bride's innocence as a child. The flower girls held the flower basket in one hand, and scattered the petals in the basket into the air with the other. The magic petals kept spinning and jumping in the air, and then slowly fell to the ground. Following the flower girls were four bridesmaids in golden dresses. Walking in front of Tonya on the right side of the purple carpet were sisters Delacour. Today, Fleur just dressed up briefly, and did not overwhelm the two brides with her beauty, but the already slim Gabriel has attracted the attention of many people. And on the right side of the carpet, walking in front of Clemens, are Harry Potter and the future Ginny Potter sisters. After the well-dressed Harley appeared, Zhang Su carefully observed the expression of the person who knew the inside story, which was very exciting. It's a good thing that someone is not here, otherwise there might be a scene of snatching the bridesmaids. At this time, Ginny has become a green leaf that sets off the red flowers, but she has been playing Miracle Holly endlessly for the past 2 days, and she no longer cares about such details. At this time, Zhang Su looked at the smile fixed on Harry's face by magic, and almost burst out laughing on the spot, which made him have to impose a mechanized mind on himself. However, Zhang told himself with extremely calm reason that it was right to laugh at this time. Fortunately, Zhang Su held back at the last moment. At the same time, the body of Scarlet, who was grasping his arm vigorously, kept trembling, obviously holding back a laugh. Ginny and I are in charge of dressing up Harley. A certain professor who stretched out his claws to the students quietly said to Zhang Su. At the end of the line, two brides in blue wedding dresses entered the venue with their father on their arms. Before Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom wore a white wedding dress to hold her wedding with her cousin in 1840, the color of wedding dresses in Europe was not fixed. In oil paintings, brides can be seen wearing brightly colored dresses such as blue, green and red. Keep a lot in the wizarding world of ancient traditions. We can often see traditions that have been passed down hundreds of years ago and have not changed. The summary of bridal attire that has been handed down from ancient England to the present is old, new, and blue, which means that there are old clothes and new clothes in the clothes worn by the bride, which are borrowed from married women who live a happy life. Trinkets from the wedding, and a blue wedding dress representing purity, fidelity and love. Even Queen Victoria, who wore an all-white wedding dress, can still be seen in the portrait with a sapphire brooch pinned to her chest. In the UK, there is a saying that RRY in blue, lover be true. When the brides walked to the podium with their father, the music ended. Two couples stood on both sides of the podium, and a small wizard stood behind the podium as the master of ceremonies. Next came the wedding vows. After the groom and the bride repeated the vows of the master of ceremonies, the grooms took the wedding rings from Ron and Rove, and then put them on the hands of their brides. In the end, the little wizard who presided over the ceremony said simply, "I announce that these two couples will be lifelong partners, whoever agrees and whoever opposes." With the applause of the guests and the celebratory tricks changed by the host, the wedding finally came to an end, and the following carnival kicked off. After presenting blessing gifts to the two couples, Zhang Su sat down on the tables and chairs around the golden dance floor that had just appeared, asked the waiters who were shuttled around for a plate of beef pie and a glass of pumpkin juice, and then they ate up. After the newcomers' opening dance, the dance floor was full of people dancing here. Ginny and Luna danced together, Cho found Harley, over there the parents of the newlyweds danced together, and even Yuri found Aunt Adams to dance together. The whole scene was in perfect harmony. After the song, Harley escaped from the dance floor and came to Zhang Su's table. "Give me a beef pie, meow," said Harry, reaching for the plate of beef pie. "I'm starving, meow." And Zhang Su suddenly took away the plate containing the pie, raised his eyebrows at Hallie, and said, "This beautiful lady, how about eating the pie after dancing with me? I, Harry Potter, will not eat a piece of your pie even if I am starving to death, meow," Harry said viciously to Zhang Su in a low voice. It's just that Harley in this appearance is really cute. Meow. Zhang couldn't help but used a fork to fork a piece of pie and handed it to Harry, saying, "Come on, I'll feed you the pie." The hungry Harley immediately frowned, her eyes widened and she angrily reprimanded Zhang. "Don't meow like this, it will embarrass me." Meow. Then Harry ran to the Lupin's table, picked up the sandwich on the table and ate it. Smell. Meow. This caused Mrs. Lupin to complain that the opening of Harry's skirt was too low, and at the same time asked the waiter for various food and began to throw food at Harry. At this time, Gabriel, who was tired from playing, came slowly to Zhang's side, and this time it was Zhang's turn to come and start feeding. As a result, Zhang's sister-in-law hadn't started feeding. He was found by a group of girls, and then he was pushed onto the dance floor by these girls. Chapter 460. Ding Zhou should attack the Ministry of Magic. At the beginning of July, in the headmaster's office at Hogwarts, Professor McGonagall sat behind his desk, concentrating on reading the scroll of parchment in his hand. Although she has been the actual manager of Hogwarts for several years, some things that only the headmaster can have the authority to know, such as the privilege of using apparition in Hogwarts Castle, and only she can do this only after the dusk and the generations contact. After a long time, Professor McGonagall put down the parchment in his hand, rubbed his brows, and picked up the teacup beside him. After drinking half a cup of tea, Mag turned to look at the portraits of previous principals on the wall of the office. The principals in the portraits were either yawning, or chatting with each other, and some kept giving her a lot. In the end, Professor McGonagall stopped at Dumbledore's portrait, but the old dang in the portrait had been dozing off, and she couldn't wake up this old friend who had worked with him for decades. Looking at the portrait of old dang sleeping soundly, Professor McGonagall recalled the time when he knew Dumbledore for decades. During his student days, Dumbledore was head of McGonagall and professor of Transfiguration. It was Dumbledore who discovered her talent for Transfiguration, and she became an animagus under Dumbledore's tutelage. After graduating and working in the Ministry of Magic for 2 years, after a failed relationship and a lot of things, McGonagall sent a cover letter to Hogwarts, and Dumbledore hired her. After working at Hogwarts for a few years, McGonagall received a letter from her mother saying that McGonagall's first love had married someone else that night. Dumbledore found McGonagall crying in her classroom, and McGonagall told him the whole story. Dumbledore comforts her and tells her some stories about his family. Since then, the two have established a relationship of mutual trust. Just as Professor McGonagall was remembering his old friend, 2 loud bangs suddenly sounded in the principal's office, and then 2 figures suddenly appeared in the office and fell to the ground. "Where is this?" A thick man's voice called. "Cedric, are you there? I'm pinned down by you." Minister Cedric's voice came from under Scrimgeour's ass. "Oh my God." Professor McGonagall, holding his wand, shouted in disbelief, "Minister Cedric, why are you here?" McGonagall. Scrimgeour, who was pulling Cedric up, asked suspiciously, "Is this place safe?" "This is the headmaster's office at Hogwarts," Professor McGonagall replied. "As for the question of whether it is safe or not, she thinks there is no need to answer it." At this time Scrimgeour also recognized this place. He breathed a sigh of relief, and then explained to Professor McGonagall, "The mysterious man led the Death Eaters to capture the Ministry of Magic, and it was Cedric who led me to escape here." After hearing the news, not only Professor McGonagall, but even the principals on the wall were taken aback. Only old Dang had been sleeping soundly in the portrait. Then Scrimgeour continued, "I remember that Dumbledore made a plan for Hogwarts to deal with such a situation before, and it seems that the name of the plan is the Cockroach Pile." At this time, Dumbledore, who had been dozing off in the painting hanging on the wall, suddenly opened his eyes, and then shouted loudly, "The bottom box of the bookcase." Professor McGonagall immediately went to the bookcase. "A few days ago, after opening the bookcase, I found a large box under a pile of old books at the bottom. After taking the box out and putting it on the desk, Professor McGonagall found that the box was locked, and a line of words was written on the lid, Meow." Professor McGonagall looked at the box, then at old Dang, who fell asleep again in the oil painting, and made a note of someone in the little black book in his heart. At this time Scrimgeour said to Professor McGonagall, "I need to go to Hogsmeade. Cedric, you stay here first, keep in touch at any time." Scrimgeour left the headmaster's office after speaking, and Professor McGonagall decided to send Cedric, who was left as a liaison officer, before opening the box. "Can you tell me about the current situation?" Professor McGonagall asked. "How did you and Scrimgeour appear here?" Compared with the plan left by Dumbledore before, Professor McGonagall now needs to understand the current situation more. After Cedric sat down on the chair in front of the desk, he organized his language and said, "Let me answer the second question first. When I was still in Hogwarts and I was participating in the Triwizard Tournament, Dumbledore and Zhang were afraid that our two Hogwarts warriors would encounter fatal danger, so they made escape kits for the two of us. Insole door key. Before the third game, Zhang gave me the door key through Chew. It was just that I didn't use it at the time, and then Dumbledore said that I might be able to use it in the future, so I kept it with me all the time. I didn't expect to use it today, and it also saved the Minister." Professor McGonagall nodded. This matter is indeed in line with Dumbledore and Zhang Su's usual style of planning for a rainy day, and she also understood how Harry ran back after being raped that year. "What about the Ministry of Magic?" asked Professor McGonagall. Cedric's soul trembled again, and then he said with lingering fear, "Earlier, the mysterious man came out of the fireplace in the hall with an unknown number of Death Eaters, and then forcibly attacked the Ministry of Magic. At that time, the mysterious man personally brought a Death Eaters came towards the minister's office. After the minister arranged for the emergency evacuation plan for all departments, the mysterious man had already arrived at the door of the office and blocked the two of us in the office. Later, I took advantage of the mysterious man's nonsense to finish talking to the minister. When I was doing it, I suddenly took the minister to activate the port key. According to the generator plan we made in advance, when the mysterious people start to attack the Ministry of Magic, if we are unable to stop them, we will immediately arrange for the evacuation of personnel from various departments to Hogsmeade, where the Ministry of Magic will resume normal work. Fortunately, today is the weekend, and only a few people in the ministry are working. The entire evacuation operation went smoothly." Knowing the general situation, Professor McGonagall pondered for a while, and then said to Cedric, "Mr. Diggory, please find Dobby in the kitchen and ask him to quietly tell the Hogwarts professors to return to Hogwarts immediately. Hogwarts. There are currently 3 people living in Hogwarts during the summer vacation. In addition to Professor McGonagall himself, there is also Hagrid, who lives by the Forbidden Forest, and an old man who ignores the grievances in the rivers and lakes at Dumbledore's grave. Professor Sprout came back occasionally to look at the plants in the greenhouse. Just when Cedric got up and turned to leave the principal's office, there was another loud noise in the office, and then a young girl he had never seen before appeared in front of him. Chapter 461 Battle of the Burrow. In the principal's office, Professor McGonagall and Cedric stared at the disheveled girl who suddenly appeared in front of them, and were stunned at the same time. "Potter!" cried Professor McGonagall. Professor McGonagall always calls students by their last names, and when Cedric listens to them, he immediately fills up the content of 100 million words in his mind. Is this Harry's sister, who has been hidden by Dumbledore? If so, Dumbledore will definitely give her the key to the principal's office, so it makes sense for her to appear here up at the same time. Professor McGonagall has added a part of the content in his mind. Back then, Old Dang told her that the Potters had only one son. Now that this person appeared in front of his eyes, could it be that Lily Potter's death was just an illusion? When Cedric walked over to help the girl up, the girl suddenly jumped up from the ground, but she accidentally stepped in the golden skirt that was torn and dragged to the ground, and she turned towards Cedric's body. The direction fell over. After the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground with a bang, there was a brief silence, and then the girl's screams filled the principal's office. A few minutes later, Harry, who panicked like a fawn encountering a pack of wolves, finally found where he was after being comforted by Professor McGonagall. After calming down, he curled up on the sofa in the principal's office and wept silently. Cedric, on the other hand, took a facial cleanser benefit first, then took a sonic attack and was stepped on by high heels a few times, before he escaped from the principal's office and went to other things. Just a minute after Cedric walked out of the principal's office, Dobby, whom he was going to find in the kitchen, appeared in the office. "Here is a girl in a golden dress, and the new principal's here," Dobby said, looking at Harry on the sofa and Professor McGonagall sitting next to her. Professor Dobby McGonagall looked at the house elf who suddenly appeared here for some unknown reason. "I'm going to reply to the message. Goodbye, new principal." Dobby bowed to Professor McGonagall and disappeared. Professor McGonagall looked at the place where Dobby disappeared, then at the girl next to him who refused to speak, and then at Dumbledore who was still sleeping on the wall. After a few rounds of thinking, she was very uncertain. Asked the girl next to him, "Are you Harry Potter?" Dobby came to the burrow and said to Lupin in Black, There's a young girl in a gold dress in the headmaster's office, and the new headmaster. Lupin, Black, and Moody breathed a sigh of relief at the same time, and then had to frown again. The burrow no longer has the joyous atmosphere it once had. The golden dance floor was gone. Most of the surrounding golden tables and chairs had been turned into firewood during the battle just now. Almost all the decorative bouquets had been trampled to the ground, and food that had been trampled into mud could be seen everywhere on the ground. Kingsley Shacklebolt's patron saint came. Less than half a minute after the Ministry of Magic was captured by the mysterious man, the protective magic of the burrow was broken, and a large group of Death Eaters in black cloaks and black masks appeared at the wedding venue. The second after the Death Eaters appeared, Zhang Su, who was blowing the bottle with someone, smashed the head of the Death Eater in front of him with a bottle, and then inserted the broken pieces of the bottle into another Death Eater next to him in the gangster's neck. The lives of the two Death Eaters sounded the battle horn. The two Death Eaters beside Yuri, who were blowing bottles with Zhang Su, raised their wands at the next moment, and killed each other without hesitation. Antonia Adams, who was chatting with the mothers of the bride and groom, killed 3 Death Eaters who rushed towards them in the first place. Ina Percy, who was bragging and chatting with his cousins, raised his wand and shot a rainbow into the sky, and then his boss John Clark appeared around the venue with all the members of the Rainbow Squad. The Death Eaters and the guests fought together, and the guests who could fight fought the Death Eaters while evacuating the terrified guests. The Death Eaters, who thought they could take advantage of the chaos to control the situation, found that the situation was not optimistic, and many of the guests' combat effectiveness was ridiculously strong. The short-haired, American-accented witch never fails to cast spells, and after a spell, a Death Eater is bound to fall. As soon as a bald wizard approached, the Death Eaters next to him either froze and were beaten to death, or started killing each other. The Zhang Su that the Death Eaters were told to be careful of, the Death Eaters who fought against him would often be stabbed to death unexpectedly by a knife that was obviously poisoned and flew out from nowhere. More conspicuous were the children of the Weasley family, whose anger added to them made the Death Eaters suffer a lot. In addition, a team of aurors from several countries in uniform came out of nowhere, and when they encountered guests, they would be stunned and told to lie down without getting in the way, and when they encountered Death Eaters, they would go straight down the heavy hand, made it either dead or disabled. Just as the situation among the Death Eaters took a turn for the worse, mutants emerged. A Death Eater who was fighting a girl in a golden skirt was suddenly kicked aside by the friendly army, and at the same time another Death Eater took advantage of the girl's daze and jumped from behind her up there, and apparated away with her. The Death Eater who had just packed up his allies and rescued the girl froze for a moment, then also apparated away. The remaining Death Eaters seemed to understand the meaning of the commander of this operation, and they rushed towards the witches who had little resistance, intending to take hostages before running away. Naturally, the rebels would not let them catch their relatives and friends, and stepped up their firepower one after another. However, they failed, and the 2 young witches, who were protecting a little girl, were stunned by several Death Eaters who broke through collectively, and then they were taken away. The other Death Eaters were either left behind or fled themselves. Lupin, Black and Moody were relieved to learn that the first captured Harley escaped to Hogwarts, and that Professor McGonagall was by her side, but that doesn't mean that's what happened today. It's over. The only good news now is that although the guests were injured, no one died under the treatment of drugs provided by Zhang Su. The injured guests were able to receive timely treatment. But Mr. Posey was yelling at the French Minister of Magic through a communicator, "We were bullied by the British in England. My daughter's wedding was ruined. Our director of the Department of International Magical Cooperation was injured by the British. Your daughter was kidnapped by the British, and if you don't help us get our place back, are you still ashamed to be a minister?" Yuri called a group of Russian wizards over, and said in a deep voice, "My granddaughter's wedding was disrupted. This is a provocation to us. Can you swallow this breath?" Mrs. Adams, after dressing the wounds of a stunned Rove, sat at one of the surviving tables and tied the red cylinders in bundles of 3. In the end, Lu Ping and the 3 searched for Zhang Su in the crowd. There was no one in the treatment area, and there was no one on the Huaxia Quidditch team. Fu Rong, who was comforting her mother with tears, did not see him. Realizing that the situation was not good, Lupin hurriedly found Scarlet, who was bandaging his hand at a table, and asked, "Helson, where did Zhang go?" Without raising his head, Scarlet said while wrapping a bandage on his hand, "Of course he went to save someone." Chapter 462 Someone Zhang used a scary cheat. When the Death Eaters took the hostages, Zhang Su was being entangled by several other Death Eaters on the other side of the venue, and he watched the three of them being taken away. After forcing himself to calm down with a mechanical mind, Zhang Su took out some medicine reserves and handed them to Mrs. Weasley, who was treating the wounded. Then he hugged Fleur and said to her, "I'll get Gabriel," and the others brought it back and left the burrow by himself. Zhang Su, who walked out of the burrow, was full of self-blame at the moment. He thought he had made thorough preparations, but an unexpected accident happened. He wasn't worried about Harley being captured by a Death Eater who ran away after seeing the shampoo, but now he was worried that after Gabriel, Changchu and Luna were captured, Voldemort would use them as hostages. What conditions do you put forward? The worst outcome now is that Voldemort asked him to exchange Harry for the 3 hostages, and the best outcome is that the Death Eaters who participated in the operation did not complete the set goal of this operation to capture Harry alive and then use the hostages to force Harry to come out, and they'll take credit for Voldemort after capturing Harry. As long as Voldemort isn't involved, then everything will be fine, but with the Death Eaters alone there's a lot of room for manipulation. However, Zhang Su didn't dare to take too risky actions at this time. If any one of Gabriel, Zhangchu and Luna had an accident, it would be an unbearable disaster for him. Therefore, when there is no reliable information, he can only collect as detailed information as possible. Under such circumstances, Zhang Su can only resort to the most unreasonable cheat in the world. The Time Turner, for Zhang Su, is a fascinating and dangerous existence. Although it can't change what has happened, and when using it, you need to face the danger of space-time backlash and space-time turbulence, but if you use it to obtain information, it is simply an existence against the sky. A few years ago, Zhang Su stole all the Time Turners from the British Ministry of Magic, and then sold them back to China for a good price. After nearly 32 years of research, relevant domestic departments have mastered its use method proficiently. Moreover, many people use time converters to travel and observe in the long river of time, which makes those candidates who study liberal arts and need to take history in the college entrance examination complain to the sky. Zhang Su secretly left behind the time converter he had used back then, and now it is time for that time converter to play a role. As long as the information about what is going to happen can be obtained from later history, then the next action is very easy. Zhang Su made up his mind to go all out, then took out his mobile phone and dialed a number. After the waiting ring on the phone rang for 55 seconds, the other end finally got through. "Oh." A girl sighed from the other end of the phone. "You know what I want to ask?" Zhang Su said to the person on the other end of the phone while paying attention to whether anyone was eavesdropping. "As long as you tell me where they are locked up, you pretend to be your mother to take pictures of me at the zoo. I'll just write things off." The other end of the phone was silent for a while, and then said, "I'll be waiting for you at the top of Ferret Mountain nearby." Less than 2 minutes later, Zhang Su came to the top of the mountain. On the top of the mountain, he saw the figure in the pink dress who looked very similar to her mother. Degrees Su. Period. Zhang Su first punched the other party into the state of squatting with his head covered with a knife, and then said, "Didn't I tell you not to play with a time converter a long time ago? I just wanted to make a phone call to try my luck, but you are really still here, smelly dad. Stop hitting me on the head all the time." Remilia Scarlet squatted on the ground and yelled, "Didn't you say you won't hit me after you turn 12? Head. According to the annals, your current age is a negative number." Zhang Su stopped his sword combo and said, "Time Turner is so dangerous. If you play around again, believe it or not, I will ask your mother to come over and play mixed doubles." "It's okay," Remy said, rubbing her head after standing up. "If there is any danger, my eldest sister and brother-in-law will come to rescue me." Seeing her father's sudden murderous look, Remy waved her hand hurriedly and said, "Don't ask about the elder sister and brother-in-law. There are too many causes and effects involved in it. You will know when the time comes." Auntie didn't object to them. "You don't worry about it, let's talk about little Aunt and Sister Luna first." Zhang Su suppressed his strong curiosity, returned to the topic, and said, "Tell me everything you can say. I won't talk about the details. What you said when you brag after drinking a few times in the future is different. You are often asked by the younger sister and the second brother, so that you pretend to be drunk and doze off." Remy said blackly to her age. "My father, who is like me, said, but what my aunt told us is much more reliable." Zhang Su pretended to look at the scenery around the mountain, and automatically ignored some of what his daughter said. Remy had nothing to do with her father, and then continued, "They are now locked in the Ministry of Magic, in the dungeon on the 10th floor underground. After some thrilling and dangerous stories, you successfully rescued them. I can only say so much. If I say more, I'm afraid it will cause confusion in the timeline. Remy finally said. That's enough. Zhang Su nodded and said, I'm in a hurry so I won't chat with you anymore. Remember not to play with fire anymore. Go back quickly. When it comes to playing with fire, how can I compare with you, Dad? Remy said in a flattering tone. Zhang Su widened his eyes, and then said, that year, if you hadn't sent me a note that imitated my notes and asked me to use the time turner to find Harry who flew away, I would never have fallen into the fire. It's a blessing in disguise anyway. Remy said with a smile, otherwise, my little sister and I would probably not have appeared in this world. Maybe you have been beaten to death by my mother now. Discussing this kind of issue involving time and cause and effect is a headache. Zhang Su, who still has urgent matters to do, reminded his daughter to return to her time with a knife in his hand, and return to the burrow with a BIU. The daughter from the future who is playing time travel just now provided him with enough information, so he needs to prepare first. The people in the burrow were startled when they saw Zhang Su appearing, and then stepped forward to inquire about the situation. But Zhang Su only said to the two people, I have already found out that the kidnapped hostages are being held at the bottom of the British Ministry of Magic. Comrade Yuri and Ms. Adams, I will give you 1,500 gold coins each and hire you come with me to rescue the hostages. Chapter 463 Bombarding the British Ministry of Magic. In a grove outside the burrow, Zhang Su and a group of people gathered around a round table transformed by transfiguration to discuss the next rescue operation. Above the table was a model of the floor of the British Ministry of Magic. Around the table, in addition to Zhang Su, there are Mrs. Adams from the United States, Yuri from Russia and several other comrades, as well as French aurors from the French Ministry of Magic who came to carry out the evacuation mission, and here not a single Englishman. Because the next action is to slap in the face of the British. Just imagine, a group of foreigners rushed into country's highest governing body, such as No. Downing Street and the White House, fought and rescued the detained hostages, no matter where they came from. On the one hand, it is all about smashing the face of this country to the ground and stepping on it a few times, and this principle is equally valid in the wizarding world. It would be fine if the British led the action, but the current situation is that the British Ministry of Magic has too many things to do after it transfers to Hogsmeade, so it can't spare manpower for reinforcements, and Zhang Su on the government side doesn't want to take the initiative. Find them, and they also need to help the British Ministry of Magic stabilize its position in Hogsmeade, and the Order of the Phoenix needs to rush to Hogwarts immediately to protect Harry. In this way, only Zhang Su was in charge of this operation. If there are British people participating at this time, they will be regarded as traitors. Therefore, Zhang Su and his group did not embarrass the Wheeleyes, and everyone consciously went to find a place nearby to discuss the operation. As for why this operation was presided over by Zhang Su, of course, apart from the fact that the three hostages are all people close to him, and he has information on where the hostages are, it is because he took out a lot of gold coins to pay for everyone's hard work. Period. In this way, Zhang Su took the blame for this operation, and the wizards from various countries who participated in the operation took Zhang Su's money. Afterwards, the British side investigated and they could throw the blame to Zhang while counting the money, so everyone all enthusiastic, and Mr. Zhang has already patted his ass and returned to China by then. Will he still be afraid of the British guys pursuing him? On the other hand, it is only one of the reasons that the wizards participating in the operation received Zhang Su's money. The most important thing is that everyone can make a big fuss at the British Ministry of Magic and severely slap the British magic community in the face for a while. It can be described as once in 1,000 years. So many people just charged Zhang Su a little money in a symbolic way. For example, the French aurors offered 200 gold coins each, while the Russian comrades only asked for 100 gold coins. Zhang Su wrote a check on the spot and paid first before doing anything. As for why wizards from the United States, Russia, and France are so enthusiastic about being able to go to the British Ministry of Magic to make a big fuss and slap the British magic circle in the face, it can only be said that the European and American magic circles have been unhappy with Britain for half a century. Since Dumbledore defeated Grindelwald and took the position of the #1 white wizard in Europe and America, the British Ministry of Magic began to use the old Deng as a sign to secretly suppress the Ministry of Magic of other European and American countries. Just like in the Muggle world, a country with an atomic bomb conducts nuclear blackmail against a non-nuclear country. At the Quidditch World Cup a few years ago, The Bulgarian Minister of Magic played tricks on the British Minister of Magic by pretending not to understand English. The Ministry of Magic wields the stick of Dumbledore blackmail, so he can only save some face in this form. And NBSP, now that Dumbledore has passed away, the shadow that has been suppressing the Ministry of Magic in Europe and the United States has disappeared, and the excuses and those who are responsible for the blame are ready. This is a great time for everyone to revenge and complain. Period. So the nephew who brought away relatives was injured, the brother's granddaughter's wedding was disrupted, and the family of the director of the ministry was bullied by foreigners in a foreign country. These are just superficial reasons. Especially the French Aurors who had just arrived from France to protect and evacuate the French at the scene. When they heard that Zhang Su was going to take people to the British Ministry of Magic to rescue the hostages, including a French citizen, their response was most positive. How can it be justified without the participation of the French? Mrs. Adams also reacted very positively. She brought her nephew to the UK to meet the world, but was injured by the British. If she returned to the US in such a disheartened manner without doing anything, where would she lose her aura flower face? Yuri's side also quickly agreed to Zhang Su's request. As a wizard who worked in Lubican, such a thing should not be missed, and he also brought a few skilled helpers. So such a four-nation coalition was quickly formed. On the other hand, Zhang Su is not afraid that Scrimgeour will come to trouble him when he returns to Hogwarts after school starts next month. If Scrimgeour's IQ is online, he will be very grateful to Zhang Su for this action. Scrimgeour also knew the truth of if you save people and lose land, you will save people and land, and if you lose land, you will lose people and land. Scrimgeour also knew the truth, so he approved from the very beginning that when Voldemort personally led the attack on the Ministry of Magic, all departments of the Ministry of Magic personnel were immediately evacuated from the Ministry of Magic and transferred to Hogsmeade's Dynamo project to re-establish the banner. However, the transferred Ministry of Magic faced a very serious problem, that is, which of the Vichy government formed by Rufus de Gaulle Scrimgeour and Voldemort at the former side of the Ministry of Magic represented the magical orthodoxy of Great Britain. Therefore, Rufus de Gaulle Scrimgeour must use all possible means to weaken the strength and prestige of the Vichy government in order to maintain the orthodox position of his own Hogsmeade authority in the hearts of British wizards. If the Ministry of Magic is breached by a group of foreigners in the hands of Voldemort, although this is a slap in the face of all British wizards, the reputation of the Vichy government that bears the brunt will definitely drop, and Scrimgeour can only hold back. With tears in his eyes, he said that the Allies did a good job. Unless Scrimgeour and Voldemort can get back together at this time regardless of previous suspicions, this is impossible. And Zhang Su figured this out in a short period of time, so he dared to summon this international force to carry out the rescue operation. The goal of the rescue operation was very clear. Before the Death Eaters in the Ministry of Magic stabilized their position, they broke into the lowest dungeon of the Ministry of Magic to rescue the hostages as quickly as possible, and then evacuated immediately. Everyone in the Grove was no rookie, and they worked out a practical plan of action in a short period of time. At this time, it was only an hour after the news that the Ministry of Magic had been breached came from Kingsley Shacklebolt. Chapter 464. With an explosion, multinational troops rushed into the British Ministry of Magic. Do you know what you have done? Didn't you signal us to take the hostages in exchange for Harry Potter, Severus? But look, who are the three you brought back, Igor? I really don't know, just give us a lesson, Professor Snape. They are all people who have a close relationship with Zhang Su. If they are hurt, you can only hope that he will make your death less painful, Mr. Karkaroff, the former principal. Since the hostages are so important to him, it's a good time for him to exchange the hostages with Harry Potter. I'm afraid he will not bring hostages when the time comes. Could he bring Aurors to save people? The Aurors are all in Hogsmeade now, they don't have the time. In the minister's office at the Ministry of Magic, Snape and Karkaroff were debating about the hostages taken during the operation that had just concluded. He was annoyed that the lily in the pot flew away just now, but when he returned to the Ministry of Magic, he found that Karkaroff and a few Death Eaters followed him and captured 3 hostages. When he saw the 3 hostages in the cell of the dungeon, he immediately felt that something was wrong, but they didn't catch Harry Potter in the action just now, so they will be punished by Voldemort, and the best thing to do right now is to find a way to get the hostages back before someone goes crazy. And now Snape is also suffering and can't tell. He took Harley away just now as Lily by mistake, but later found out that the person in front of him was Lucy Scamander from the United States. The other party escaped, and it's not easy to explain to other people. Could it be that I arrested her not because I wanted to take hostages, but also because she looks like the goddess Voldemort in my dream and used him as snake feed every minute? So Snape couldn't completely deny Karkaroff's actions, so he could only argue with him while writing to Zhang Su asking him to bring Harry to replace him. Although he knew this was impossible, something had to be done. You can't just put the hostages back just like that. At least you have to act out a scene where the hostages are exchanged and then become the other party's rescue of the hostages, and finally your own side loses. Just when Snape was about to tie the letter with the time and place of the hostage exchange to the owl's leg, there was a violent vibration under his feet. Dividing line. The way for guests to enter the Ministry of Magic is to go down to the central foyer on the 8th floor of the Ministry of Magic through the telephone booth on the deserted street, and then go to the various floors through the elevator in the elevator hall behind the foyer. In addition, the central hall of the Ministry of Magic can be accessed by using flue powder in a networked fireplace. The invasion plan formulated by Zhang Su is very simple. Everyone first went to Gringotts to collect the labor fee with a check given by Zhang Su, and Zhang Su himself went to the telephone booth leading to the Ministry of Magic and said he wanted to find Snape. At the last moment, he put a box full of MRS's bag in the phone booth and let it go down alone, and made it to Gringotts in time. After returning to Gringotts, everyone took the time to enter the central hall of the Ministry of Magic through the fireplace here. It is now less than 2 hours since Voldemort led the Death Eaters to capture this place. Voldemort has brought most of the main Death Eaters to Hogsmeade to carry out the siege. The ordinary staff have all evacuated, so here only those who are outer Death Eaters celebrating a victory. In the central foyer, a group of Death Eaters from all over the world were reveling around the golden fountain in the center of the foyer. Several people tried to knock the fountain down. At the next moment, the elevator leading to the telephone booth on the ground arrived here, and after the door opened automatically, it exploded with a boom. The huge shock wave carried countless steel balls with a diameter of only a few millimeters and rushed towards the Death Eaters in the central hall. The few Death Eaters standing outside immediately became after entering the hornet's nest. Many people were overturned to the ground by the shock wave. Many Death Eaters reacted immediately after the explosion, and hurriedly pulled out their wands and pointed to the elevator. When these Death Eaters were all focused on the elevator entrance that had been blown beyond recognition, a green flame lit up in the fireplace behind them, and then a figure rushed out of the fireplace. Appearance BGBR, he's coming, spells roared from the smoke and dust. He is coming, he is coming. As soon as the magic came out, the ground shook. The rolling wand sweeps away the enemy. The Death Eaters were so frightened that they ran away. Appearance BGBR, Zhang Su, who was the first to appear in the center of the hall, raised his wand and pointed it at the Death Eaters. Behind them was a burst of meteors, and the Death Eaters with their backs to him split into several pieces. Right, ball 3. The Death Eaters who noticed something was wrong behind them turned around one after another, and as a result, many of them got a fireball in the face. Several fireballs suddenly exploded among the group of Death Eaters. After a burst of strong light, these Death Eaters were blinded by the dazzling light. At this moment, the green flames in several fireplaces swelled up simultaneously, and then many people came out of the fireplaces together. In the face of the blind Death Eaters, none of the members of the multinational force who came to rescue the hostages was merciful. After 2 minutes, there was no longer a Death Eater alive in the central foyer and elevator hall. The people present were all battle-tested, and no one felt any discomfort with a scene of corpses strewn all over the place. If you brought Ron and his students here today, you would have to spend a lot of time giving them psychological counseling. Quickly put bombs on the fireplace and the elevator. Zhang Su, who was the commander of the operation, ordered. According to the plan made in advance, except for one fireplace as a backup retreat, all the other fireplaces are equipped with special bombs made by Mrs. Adams. As long as someone enters the fireplace through flue powder, these bombs will kill the fireplace and the visitor blow up. The bombs in the elevators are different. Apart from leaving one elevator for your own use, there is a booby trap installed at the door of the other elevators. When the elevator door is opened, it will explode, and it is one of the booby traps that exploded. At that time, others will also explode together. As a result, when Snape and Karkaroff took the elevator to the 8th floor, they were warmly welcomed by the bombers. Fortunately, Snape remembered some of Zhang's behavior, and put an iron armor curse on himself in advance, Otherwise he might have to confess here today. The shock wave from the bomb pushed him back, causing Karkaroff, who was standing behind him, to have his ribs nearly broken. The elevator car of the Ministry of Magic is not spacious, and it is very crowded when Zhang Su and his party are all standing inside. This has led to the situation where Zhang Su and Mrs. Adams are now face to face. Mrs. Adams blew lightly on Zhang Su's neck, and then said, "Little handsome guy, let's have a drink together after this time is over." Although Mrs. Adams's voice was not loud, but this was in the elevator, everyone present heard it, and many people whistled as a result. It seemed that the elevator came to the 9th floor soon, and the group was about to face their biggest challenge in this operation, so Zhang Su was able to escape from the extremely embarrassing situation. Chapter 465 Infiltrating the Dungeon. The Department of Mysteries, located on the 9th floor of the Ministry of Magic, is the most mysterious institution in the Ministry of Magic. The Department of Mysteries conducts various top-secret research that is unknown to outsiders. It can be said that this is the scientific research department directly under the Ministry of Magic, and it represents the pinnacle of magic technology in the British wizarding world. Under such a background, a multinational army came here. How could it not go back with some local products? In other words, I am afraid that the Aurors from France are more interested in this place than in rescuing the second lady of the Delacour family. But everyone knows that the primary task of today's operation is to rescue the hostages, and Zhang, the leader of the team, is not easy to fool, so bring some souvenirs or something. Then we have to see the situation at the scene. Someone who came here once quietly introduced the situation in the Department of Mysteries to everyone, so everyone quickly reached an agreement. If there's a chance, send someone to collect some souvenirs first, and wait until the work is done. Divide, and finally put the cauldron on the Death Eater's head together. For this place, the Death Eaters are also salivating. After the Death Eaters occupied the Ministry of Magic, many aspiring Death Eaters came here, trying to get some powerful magic items here. However, the huge movement upstairs just now made the Death Eaters here alert, so they gathered in the corridor in front of the black door, drew out their wands, and prepared to attack the people who came out of the elevator. After the sound of ding, the elevator arrived. After the elevator door opened, Snape with flowing hair came out of the elevator, followed by a group of black robes and hoods of the same style as Death Eaters, whose faces could not be seen. The wizard. Snape led a group of people to the relieved Death Eaters, looked at them coldly, and said, "The Master has ordered us to come and fetch some things." These Death Eaters were all peripheral members who joined later. The old ones were basically taken to Hogsmeade by Voldemort, and the two who remained in charge of the Ministry of Magic were both wounded upstairs just now. Many of these young Death Eaters hadn't met Snape a few times, they just knew that there was such a person after all. The potion that Snape participated in developed helped many Death Eaters get rid of the pain of withdrawal reaction. As for Zhang, who has known Snape for so many years, he is already very familiar with his demeanor and tone. After transforming into Snape with body transfiguration, he is confident that he can fool many people. At this moment, one of the Death Eaters asked, "Mr. Snape, what happened upstairs just now?" Pantene shrugged off Snape. Snape gave the Death Eater the same way Snape looked at Harry, and then said in an emotionless and hollow voice, "It's just that a few mice got in and they've been cleaned out." Head and shoulders relieved. The itching Snape finished speaking, ignored the Death Eaters, and continued walking with the people behind him. Those new Death Eaters knew Snape's temper, so they didn't notice anything wrong for a while. Just as Rejoice went to oil Snape and the others were about to walk to the black door of the Department of Mysteries at the end of the corridor, a figure appeared on the left side of the stairs leading to the 10th floor of the dungeon. Draco Malfoy, who had just come out of the dungeon, was taken aback when he saw Snape, and then he saw Snape's soft and flowing hair. After being stunned for a moment, he finally said, "Professor Snape, please come down with me." Overlord Fangchuo. Snape nodded without changing his expression, and then said to the wizards behind him, "You go get the things first, I'll go down for a while," then turned around and walked into the stairs with Malfoy alone, and walked downstairs. Walking in a passage with barely a ray of light, a wand was pressed against the back of Malfoy's neck. He was about to say something, but found that he couldn't move. Then a hand squeezed his mouth open, and he was poured into a packet of what looked like powder. After these things entered his mouth, he could feel them still beating while making a crackling sound. After a while, when the contents of Malfoy's mouth had all melted into his stomach, Snape, who was still pinching his sassoon, asked, "Where are the three of them locked up? If you don't tell the truth, I don't know. I can assure you that you will have a good end." Malfoy, who knew this would happen a long time ago, sighed in his heart, and then replied obediently, "The three of them are locked in the innermost room, and there are guards outside the corridor." Malfoy fell down as soon as he finished speaking, and was kicked by Snape, the young Earl, to the edge of the stairs. As Icarus Snape made his way down the stairs to the landing, he raised his wand to the torches stuck in the rough stone walls of the corridor. Thousands of miles of snow. All of a sudden, a blizzard blew up in the corridor of the basement, all the torches were blown out, and the corridor was plunged into darkness. At this moment the Death Eaters in the hallway were in chaos, shouting and raising their wands. But when they used their wands to illuminate, they found that the corridor had been filled with thick black mist for some time, so they had to rely on sound to communicate with other people. However, these Death Eaters found that there were fewer and fewer companions around who responded to them, and the sound of heavy objects falling and the slap of objects hitting stone walls increased. A few minutes later, Zhang Su stood up from the ground and put away the Hogwarts goggles with thermal imaging function. Then he held a Type 95 automatic rifle with a constant silencing spell in one hand, and cast a whirlwind at the corridor with his wand and the other spells, and several false fire spells. After the black mist was blown away, under the light of the false fire spell, it could be seen that all the Death Eaters in the corridor were lying on the ground. Zhang Su remembered that in this corridor, there was a courtroom on the outside, and a cell for temporarily holding prisoners ready for trial inside. Moreover, the space in each courtroom is not small. If there are few Death Eaters inside, there may be accidents. So after shooting all the Death Eaters on the ground, Zhang Su took out a stack of sealing symbols and slapped them on the wooden doors on both sides of the corridor. They are all sealed, so as not to wait for someone inside to come out and get in the way. When Zhang Su came to the end of the corridor, he found that there were two opposite cells here, and he was not sure which one Gabriel and the others were locked in. The door of the cell was obviously enchanted, and the sound inside could not be heard, and the iron latch on the door showed signs of being opened recently. Zhang Su could only seal the cell door on the left first, and then try his luck in the cell on the right. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 466. The dungeon where prisoners are temporarily held on the 10th floor of the Ministry of Magic is very simple. The narrow room is empty, with nothing in it, only a candle with a flame as weak as a bean stuck on the stone wall. Chiu and Luna were sitting on the corner floor leaning against the rough stone wall, chatting casually, while Gabriel buried her head in her knees and listened quietly to their chat. The main content of the chat is naturally a guy who seems omnipotent in the eyes of their peers, and they rely on chatting to cheer themselves up. The Death Eaters left after they were captured and imprisoned here. Only Malfoy came here not long ago, asked about a certain beautiful girl, and left without getting any more answers. Just when a certain elder was talking about the embarrassing things that happened when he was playing with his eldest nephew when he was a child, the door of the cell was open with a squeak, and then a chubby silver patron saint rushed in. Behind the patron saint, Zhang Su walked in holding his wand. Zhang Su pointed his wand at Chiu, who was protecting Gabriel and Luna behind him like an eagle catching a hen in a chick, and asked in Chinese, "Tell me something that only you and I know." Zhang Su wasn't sure whether the person in front of him was Chiu herself or a Death Eater in disguise, so he could only tell the code first. "What did we find when we were digging mud by the river to make beggar chickens in the summer 10 years ago?" Chiu asked. "The imitation patronus is on a balm," Zhang Su said. That summer, when Chiu's family visited their home, their two aunts and nephews went to play by the river, and they dug out an unexploded aerial bomb left over from the war period in the mud on the river bank. Zhang Su was terrified light. Then Zhang Su looked at Luna and asked, "Tell me about the harassing horsefly and the horn-snoring beast." Only Luna can answer these two things, so the Luna here who can say these two things clearly is real. Zhang Su looked at Gabriel for the last time, then walked over and rubbed her face. The feeling and reaction were all his fault. After confirming the safety of the three hostages, Zhang Su stopped talking nonsense and took out a few dollar keys and handed them to Chiu. "Take the two of them and leave first. If you don't get into the safe house of the embassy for the first time, use the second door key immediately." Zhang Su instructed Chiu, "Then tell Fu Rong to go back to the embassy with her family first." France. The last time he had used the portkey with Harry and Malfoy, It had been interrupted by the magic of Voldemort and the Death Eaters, so Zhang Su made preparations this time, and if the portkey failed once, he would use it a second time or even a third time. Zhang Su didn't want to take the three of them back to the central foyer by the same route, and then go to Gringotts or other places through the fireplace there. Su didn't want the three of them to see it. Knowing the urgency of the situation, Chu didn't say much, and left with Gabriel and Luna after telling Zhang Su to be safe. Seeing that the task of rescuing the hostages was completed, Zhang Su could finally breathe a sigh of relief. It wasn't just Gabriel and the others who were locked in the dungeon. The Ministry of Magic staff who couldn't evacuate in time were also locked in other cells. Just now Zhang Su was opposite two Ministry of Magic employees who were locked up were found in the room, but they were accidentally knocked out by someone Zhang as Death Eaters. It's just that this time Zhang Su can't take them into consideration. Those who didn't run away are old and weak people, who don't even know the Iron Armor curse. When we are disciples, we all die together after all. What Zhang Su and the others are doing now is head-scratching work, and there is no room for a single mistake. Then it's time to search for souvenirs. I don't know how the others are doing at the Department of Mysteries. When Zhang Su came to the round hall of the Department of Mysteries, the battle here had just ended, and the Death Eaters who had gathered here just now were all wiped out under the sudden attack. When Zhang Su notified them that the hostages had left safely, everyone happily searched here. Now the Hall of Time is in trouble, because the items in it are a complete collection of time magic research in the British magic world. If you choose carefully, it is very likely that you can reverse the technology tree of time magic, which is unique in the world in Britain. So after a brief discussion again, the group simply divided the time hall into 4 equal parts, as much as they could get within 5 minutes, and everyone retreated as soon as the time was up. At this time, there is no need to worry about the alarm spells on those magic items. Anyway, no matter how loud they are, no one will come. Apparently everyone present had containers with the untraceable stretching charm cast on them, and magical items disappeared from shelves and tables. Zhang Su came to a 1.6 meter high 5 high bell-shaped crystal glass cover. There was a hummingbird in it that was born in a loop. He noticed it when he came last time. According to the plot, Ginny was very interested in it. It would be Harry and Ginny's wedding gift a few years later, and Zhang Su stuffed this big guy into the treasure bag with great difficulty. Everyone's preparations were limited, so they couldn't take away too many things in just 5 minutes. Even Zhang Su's treasure bag was full for the first time. Just when the crowd started to retreat, Zhang Su let them go first, claiming that he was going to lay some booby traps here. So these people left first through the prepared door keys, leaving Zhang Su here alone. Seeing that there was no one around, Zhang Su took out a gourd, opened the lid and said the word receive. The remaining things in the time hall were sucked into the gourd as if they had encountered a tornado. Guessing that he got a courtyard house in the second ring road of the capital, Zhang took the gourd and ran away. When Zhang Su finished finishing work and walked into the living room of the embassy, Gabriel was on the phone to report to Fu Rong and her parents that they were safe. Seeing Zhang Su coming in, Gabriel dropped the phone, ran over slowly and plunged into Zhang Su's arms. Zhang Su lightly patted Gabriel, who was hugging him tightly, and pressed her face tightly to her chest, but she had no other reaction except that the hug became tighter and tighter. He knew that Gabriel, who hadn't spoken much just now, was frightened today. A little girl like her who has been living in the bright sunshine has never been exposed to such things. Zhang Su could only hug Gabriel to the sofa and sit down, then picked up the phone receiver she dropped just now, and reported to Furin that she was safe. Chapter 467 Hogsmeade's First Anti-Siege Campaign, 1. When the sunset gradually climbed into the sky, next to the Hogsmeade train station, Scrimgeour sat on the ground without hesitation, panting heavily against the wall of the train station. 10 minutes ago, the Death Eaters who attacked Hogsmeade finally retreated, and after arranging the aftermath, Scrimgeour could finally sit down and catch his breath. At this moment, he no longer cared about the image of the Minister of Magic, and many wizards around him were sitting by the wall and resting like him. Would you like one? A wizard sitting not far from Scrimgeour handed him 2 555s. Thank you. Scrimgeour took a cigarette in the opponent's hand, lit it with his wand, and took a deep breath. The smoky exhale gathered into a line running towards the sky. The next moment, a swan, also made of cigarette smoke, flew into the sky beside the lion. Then, like children competing with each other, the two kept spitting out various animals made of smoke. The reason why the two of them had so much fun was to adjust their extremely nervous state of mind as soon as possible. What's your name? Scrimgeour, who had disposed of the cigarette butt, remembered to ask the name of the wizard who just handed him the cigarette. Bear, the wizard replied. Bear Grylls, nice to meet you, Mr. Scrimgeour. Scrimgeour nodded, and then said, thank you very much for your helping hands today. You're welcome, Bell said, shaking his head. This is also our duty. Among the people resting around the train station in Hogsmeade, apart from wizards in robes like Scrimgeour, there were also many government wizards in military uniforms like Bear Grylls. Although I don't know the reason, I'm very glad that the Death Eaters retreated at the last moment. Scrimgeour said after sighing, if they persist for another 5 minutes, the first protective magic here will be broken. Bell, who had lingering fear on the side, nodded. Just now they almost failed to stop the Death Eaters who were led by Voldemort himself. At the same time, in the living room on the second floor of the coffee shop in Hogsmeade, Zhang Su was arrested and treated the wounded just as he entered the door. Welsh, Nelson, and Rodney sat aside, while Hood, whose chest was stained with blood and whose blue dress was torn, was lying on the couch frowning, and their eyes fell on Zhang Su. After looking, hearing, and asking, Zhang Su said to Hood while applying medicine to the wound, the trauma to the chest has been treated with first aid, and the bleeding has stopped now. This is not a big problem. Then, while palpating around the wound, he said, the tricky thing now is that there are a few broken ribs, and the ribs need to be reset before the bones can heal. Fortunately, the broken ribs did not stab the heart and lungs. I'll trouble you next, Hood said after heaving a sigh of relief. After a lot of groping and splicing, Zhang Su connected the injured and broken ribs. After feeding some potions for treating fractures, Zhang Su put the fish cake, which fell asleep immediately after drinking the medicine, on the mat where it usually rests. Just don't let it run around for 24 hours. Zhang Su said to Hood. An NBSP, just now, after Zhang Su comforted Gabriel and sent her back to the burrow for her family to take good care of, she immediately rushed to Hogsmeade alone. On the periphery of Hogsmeade, many wizards from the Ministry of Magic could be seen carrying corpses on the ground, and some slightly injured aurors were bandaging their wounds or drinking potions. Zhang Su, who appeared in the distance, saw that Hogsmeade had withstood Voldemort's siege, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Just now he was still thinking that if the two sides were at a stalemate when he appeared, he could still harass the Death Eaters from the outside to relieve the pressure on Hogsmeade. As early as a year ago, Zhang Su quietly submitted the overall framework of the North Atlantic Barrier Plan to Dumbledore and Scrimgeour. This plan analyzed the inevitability of Voldemort's capture of the Ministry of Magic and the necessity of the Ministry of Magic's transfer to a new fortress. Although the protective magic in the Ministry of Magic is powerful, it is so powerful that Voldemort has to rely on internal support to capture it, but these magics have existed for so long that it is easy for Voldemort and his gang to find some loopholes. Especially not long after this plan was submitted, a series of explosions occurred at the Merlin Medal awarding ceremony held in the auditorium of the Ministry of Magic, making Dumbledore and Scrimgeour determined to perfect and implement this plan. Zhang Su did not participate in the specific details of the national-level action of building a wartime fortress for the head of the government, but only limited participation in the formulation of the Generator Project and Cockroach Heap Project as subsidiary projects. Dumbledore, the Ministry of Magic, and the government army based on the protection magic of the government army's nuclear arsenal, and at the same time absorbed the directors of various companies, and quietly built a complete defense system in Hogwarts and Hogsmeade. And this defense system will only be activated when the Generator Project and Cockroach Heap Project are launched. Zhang Su only got a little hint about this matter from Scarlet, one of the participants, but the detailed information is unknown. Judging from the current actual situation, the North Atlantic Barrier Plan is successful. It seems that facing different defense systems, Voldemort will have to spend a lot of effort to crack the defensive magic here. Zhang Su was finally able to enter Hogsmeade after being verified as righteous. His first stop was to come to the coffee shop to learn about the situation just now. Just from the fact that both Ginger and Fishcake were injured, it can be seen how fierce the battle that happened here just now was. After Zhang Su placed the Fishcakes and Ginger, he sat on the sofa in the living room and asked Hood on the opposite side, "Is your injury okay, Ms. Hood? If there's no problem, will I still lie down like this?" Hood turned his head and gave Zhang Su a white look. "Do you need me to call 999 for you?" Zhang Su saw that the other party still had the energy to joke with himself, which showed that the problem was not serious. What Zhang Su didn't know was that there were 41,785 Oscars running wildly in Hood's heart at this time. The back of the old lady's long skirt was torn, and the back was gone. I was busy treating the fish cake just now, so I didn't have time to change clothes. If you didn't come in suddenly, the old lady would have to lie here to avoid being taken advantage of by you. Hood looked at the other three with begging eyes, and as a result it's getting late. I'm going to prepare dinner. I'm going to write the report first. Call me when dinner is ready. Sister, let me help you make dinner. Mr. Zhang, take a rest here and have dinner together later. Chapter 468 Hogsmeade's first anti-siege campaign, 2. Mr. Zhang has been in the rivers and lakes for so many years, and his ability to read words and demeanor is still not low. Seeing the situation of several people at the scene, I immediately realized that something was wrong, so I immediately got up and went out to help prepare dinner. After all, he and these people in front of him are not yet familiar enough to make some exaggerated jokes. Playing around between them is their business, so it would be inappropriate for him to get involved, and he is no longer the same future as he was 2 years ago grown up. Half an hour later, 5 people in the coffee shop were sitting around the dining table, eating pasta while communicating what happened to both sides today. When Scrimgeour came to Hogsmeade from Hogwarts, officials and staff of the Ministry of Magic began to transfer here one after another. After getting the news, these people in the coffee shop reported it to their superiors as soon as possible. Soon, the Pig's Hut Bar became the headquarters again after a lapse of nearly, years. Next, orders were sent from the Hogs Hut to all parts of the UK. Hogsmeade is rich in people, with Hogwarts in the west, the vast Forbidden Forest in the east, dangerous mountains in the north, and direct railway access in the south. Stationed in the office. It has been more than, years to prepare for the wind and rain. The British people share the same hatred with the enemy and wholeheartedly relieve the difficulties. At the same time, the Death Eaters also energized the Ministry of Magic all over the world. The British Ministry of Magic has been occupied by them, and a new magic government has been established. All of a sudden, officials from the Ministry of Magic to vendors in Diagon Alley fell into the choice of standing in line: those who defected to Hogsmeade to face the national disaster, those who remained neutral and waited for the changes, those who began to show loyalty to Voldemort, and those who hide at home trembling at a loss. Different wizards made their own choices at this time. Soon, all the Aurors arrived at Hogsmeade and began to arrange the security work here. Most of the leading cotters and staff of the Ministry of Magic at all levels went to the Pig's Hut Bar to report. In the following time, the room above the Pig's Hut Bar was the office of Minister of Magic Scrimgeour, and the lobby on the first floor was a large conference room. Voldemort's reaction was not slow. After learning that almost all the Ministry of Magic had transferred to Hogsmeade, he sent people to the Burrow to arrest Harry Potter, and at the same time led the team to Hogsmeade to encircle and suppress the former magicians. The remnants of the Ministry. Just when Scrimgeour and the others had stabilized their position, Voldemort led the Death Eaters to kill them. Both sides did not talk nonsense, and immediately killed each other. Relying on Hogsmeade's newly established defensive magic system, which they were not familiar with, the Aurors barely blocked the Death Eaters' attack. At this moment, the Death Eaters who had been lurking in Hogsmeade suddenly started to act. They began to create chaos in the Hogsmeade village in an attempt to cooperate with each other. However, these Death Eaters failed to cause too much trouble. After injuring several people and 2 cats, they were pinned to the ground and rubbed by the government troops who came to support them. So you are fully involved in this matter this time. After finishing a simple dinner, Zhang Su sat on the sofa and asked. Among the 4, Wales, with the highest level of epaulets, said seriously, yes, starting today, we will provide a full range of assistance. At the same time, we will suspend all communication with the you-know-who authorities. Zhang Su picked each day and said, so, they can't buy food, salt, cloth and other daily necessities directly from you. Including but not limited to these. Welsh said while drinking tea. Zhang Su frowned. He still wanted to know the meaning behind this matter. In this way, in the eyes of conservative wizards, the Ministry of Magic had actually compromised with the Muggle government in exchange for support. After all, the Muggle government has always been supporting whoever is in the Ministry of Magic in the past. They have nothing to do with the struggle in the Ministry of Magic, and they have never personally ended it like this. The Ministry of Magic did this all at once, and there were quite a few conservative wizards to offend. Zhang Su leaned back on the sofa, tapped the armrest with his fingers, and then fell into a wave of deep thought. Now the situation is complicated. Before Voldemort is wiped out, the struggle they face is complicated among them. Political struggle is no less important than military struggle. An economic struggle may also be carried out during this period, but this is not a place to think about problems, so he quickly came out of his contemplation. After asking a few insensitive questions, Zhang Su asked them, "Then what are your plans for the future? Why, don't worry about us." Nelson on the side winked at Zhang Su. "No." Zhang Su shook his head and said, "If your store doesn't open, then wouldn't the VIP card in my hand be useless?" Rodney, who came back with a bottle of red wine, almost dropped the bottle on Zhang's head. "Would you like a drink?" Rodney asked Zhang Su after putting the wine and glass on the coffee table. "Another day," Zhang Su said. Fireflies light up the starlight at night, flowing into the moonlight and rippling slightly. Hogsmeade under the moonlight is not peaceful. Groups of Aurors are patrolling the streets. The leaders of various departments of the Ministry of Magic are bringing their subordinates into the rented houses, where to work during the hours. Some of the faces of the people here are full of passion for making great achievements, while others have gray faces that cannot see the future. Mr. Delacour walked the streets of Hogsmeade, carefully observing every detail here. As the director of the Department of International Magic Cooperation of the French Ministry of Magic, he happened to experience the coup in England. He was sent by the French Ministry of Magic to visit the British Ministry of Magic in the north. On the one hand, he conveyed the support from France to the British side, and on the other hand, make a comprehensive assessment of the current situation in the UK. Similar to his mission are Mrs. Adams and Yuri, who are traveling with him after notifying the magic departments of their respective countries about the situation in Britain as quickly as possible. They were officially authorized as special envoys to inquire about more detailed information. Not long after the three of them entered Hogsmeade under the leadership of the Auror who led the way, they saw Zhang Su walking out of the alley beside the main road while talking on his mobile phone. On the phone, the relevant leader of the embassy sent a domestic order, ordering Zhang Su to rush to the Ministry of Magic's residence as soon as possible, and then express condolences to the British Ministry of Magic as a special envoy on behalf of the country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Chapter 469. The People's Government of China calls on all human beings who love peace, justice and freedom all over the world, especially the nations and peoples in Western countries who have been persecuted by extremist terrorist organizations, to rise up together and stop the new aggression of extremist terrorism in the West. As long as we are not intimidated, resolutely mobilize the broad masses of the people to participate in the struggle against war makers. This kind of aggression can be completely defeated. The Chinese people express sympathy and respect for the British people who are persecuted by extremist terrorist organizations and are fighting against them, and firmly believe that oppressed nations and the people will be able to finally bury the warmakers of the heinous extreme terrorist organization in the anger of the great people's struggle. After reciting a few hundred words of diplomatic statement to British Minister of Magic Scrimgeour on behalf of relevant state departments in the tone of a news broadcast, and accepting thanks from Scrimgeour on behalf of British Wizards and Ministry of Magic, Zhang Su left Xiutao Bar. In addition to Zhang Su, Mrs. Adams, like Yuri and Mr. Delacour, expressed their condolences to the British Ministry of Magic on behalf of their respective countries' Ministry of Magic, and then expressed their belief that the British Ministry of Magic will be able to overcome the difficulties ahead. After the routine work was over, 3 other diplomats from the United States, Russia, and France left together. Mr. Zhang, as the host, don't you buy me a drink? Mrs. Adams pointed to the 3 broomsticks bar by the roadside and said to Zhang Su. Yuri thought of what happened in the elevator during the day, whistled and pulled Mr. Delacour to leave. And Mr. Delacour glanced at Zhang Su, raised his eyebrows, and then prepared to turn in with Yuri with a smile. Faced with this proposition, Zhang Su hurried over and pulled the sleeves of his future father-in-law and Yuri, and said as he walked towards the bar, "It's a rare visit, let's have a drink together." There were quite a few guests in the 3 broomsticks today. Most of them were residents of Hogsmeade, and some of them were still in bandages, but everyone in the bar is not very talkative. Most people are drinking, only a few people are talking about what happened today in a low voice. It seems that the morale of the Brits is not high. Mr. Delacour frowned slightly while holding a glass of cocktail. The group of them sat near the middle of the bar, and could easily hear the conversations of other people in the bar while they were talking. Zhang Su used a small spell so that outside voices could come in, but their voices would not go out. As the person who is most familiar with the local situation, Zhang Su replied, "After all, The mysterious man can stop children from crying at night in the UK. Younger wizards were frightened by his name to grow up. And Den, who is now the banner figure with a little gone, people will inevitably lose confidence. Can the English stand it? Asked Mrs. Adams. Obviously, Mr. Delacour and Yuri are also very concerned about this issue, and they also want to hear Zhang Su's opinion. If the command responds properly, I think although the process may be tortuous and some sacrifices are required, the victory must be on our side. Zhang Su said confidently. If you are in danger, you can escape to France, and you don't need to work hard for the British. Mr. Delacour said to Zhang Su, as long as you are alive, everything can turn around. An NBSP, Zhang Su understood what his future father-in-law meant, and immediately nodded in agreement. In the following time, Zhang Su introduced and detailed the whole process of Voldemort's comeback. Some of the details were never disclosed by the British Ministry of Magic before. This information is enough for several of them to report to their superiors. The night was getting dark, and Hogsmeade tonight was bound to be unsettled. Zhang Su and his party returned to the burrow after finishing their glasses of wine. Mrs. Adams kept hinting that Zhang Su had something to talk to him about, and it was a serious matter, but Zhang Su never gave her a chance. The helpless Mrs. Adams had no choice but to write a letter overnight for Zhang Su to forward to the relevant domestic authorities after returning to the burrow, and then return to the United States with her Vescommander after breakfast early the next morning. Most of the guests who attended the wedding retreated overnight yesterday, so after breakfast and seeing off Rove and his party, the burrow seemed a lot more deserted than before. Lupin and Black, two members of the Order of the Phoenix, have gone to Hogwarts to protect Harry, and Scarlet was also recalled to Hogwarts by Principal McGonagall yesterday. After Mr. Weasley settled down at home yesterday, he went to Hogsmeade. During this period, it seems that he will be working overtime there and will not be able to return. Percy also followed a Rainbow Squad to Hogsmeade. He found Zhang Su in the bar last night, and then rented Zhang Su's villa as a temporary residence in England. The two couples are about to start their honeymoon trip. They originally wanted to stay, but Mrs. Weasley strongly urged them to act according to the original plan. After all, foreign countries are much safer than the UK now. And Zhang Su also wants to go back to China, and Fu Rong will go with him. After Zhang Su came back last night, Fu Rong strongly requested to stay with him in England. After a whole night of intense negotiations, Fu Rong could only obey Zhang Su's persuasion and go back to school obediently. In this way, there will be only Mrs. Weasley, the twins, Ron, Ginny and Hermione left in the burrow for a while, and the twins will go to Diagon Alley to look after the shop. Because Voldemort has a tradition of taking family members as hostages to threaten others to submit, under Zhang Su's persuasion, the few of them moved to Black's old house in the next time, which was much better than the burrow that had been breached once. Much safer. Before leaving, Zhang Su called Ron and Hermione aside, and handed them a thick envelope. In the next period of time, Harry will start to be erected as a banner against a mysterious man. Zhang Su said solemnly to Ron and Hermione, soon, people from all walks of life will be in Hogwarts holds a meeting on the next course of action, and Harry will certainly be called to attend. Inside this envelope is the plan that Professor Dumbledore and I made together during his lifetime. You give him to Harry as soon as possible. If this plan is implemented, then the days to come will be easier. After listening, Ron and Hermione solemnly accepted the thick envelope Zhang Su handed over. The envelope was as heavy as Ben Nevis in their hands. Ron and Hermione stated that they would have Creature deliver the report to Harry today. Chapter 470 Things Not Recorded in History Textbooks. The Hogwarts Conference refers to a meeting held in Hogwarts in August 1997 by the British government, the British Ministry of Magic, the International Auror Organization, the Order of the Phoenix and other government departments and social groups to solve the problem of extremist terrorist organizations headed by Voldemort. An extremely important enlarged meeting. This was held in order to unite all parties to resist Voldemort and his accomplices under the circumstances of the fall and transfer of the Ministry of Magic. This meeting established a course of action proposed by Dumbledore during his lifetime. In Hogwarts History of Magic classroom, Professor Binns, who had finally replaced with the latest textbooks, told the students in the classroom the history that happened more than 10 years ago with his tone that hadn't changed in the past few decades. And the students behind the desks are no different from their predecessors for more than a decade, yawning, whispering and writing other coursework abound. The students in this classroom had parents who lived through that turbulent time, Some whose parents were on the front lines of the battle. It can be said that they grew up listening to the stories about the war told by their parents. In the corner of the classroom, a girl fell asleep lying on the table. Beside the girl, Lily Potter helplessly woke up the girl who started snoring. "Is get out of class over, Lily?" the sleepy-eyed girl asked. "You're going to start snoring again, Fran." Lily said helplessly, "I heard that you fell asleep and snort in Transfiguration class yesterday, and Professor Black deducted a lot of points. Shouldn't you be happy that Ravenclaw's points were deducted as a Gry finder?" Fran rubbed her eyes and said, "Anyway, I'll ask the other two little Professors Black to help me get the points back." Listening to Professor Binns lecture on the podium, and looking at Lily Potter sitting beside her, Fran suddenly thought of something, and then she whispered to Lily, "Lily, I heard from my father that this meeting, there is a secret in this meeting that has never been mentioned in any book, and I don't think you have heard of it. One of the disadvantages of giving lectures to those who have witnessed historical events and their descendants is that they can always reveal some unknown facts that do not match the propaganda caliber." Lily also grew up listening to the stories of her parents and others, and she also knew some unknown things, so she was curious about what Fran said. Seeing Lily's expression of "tell me soon," Fran said seriously, "Your father attended this meeting wearing the pink floral dress that the principal wore when he was young." Just when the boat of friendship was about to capsize, Lily froze suddenly. She remembered a treasured photo album of her mother after she and her brothers cracked the protective magic on it. They found that it was full of photos of her mother and a girl of the same age when she was a student. In one of the photos, the girl is wearing a pink floral dress. As a result, the three of them were caught by their father before they could finish reading the photos, and then her brothers were hanged and beaten. After finishing lunch, Lily took Fran to the faculty lounge at Hogwarts. She wanted someone to confirm what happened today. Today is the day when Hogwarts pays salaries. The professors who have just received this month's salary are all drinking tea, chatting and bragging in the faculty lounge. Because many professors are also their elders, Lily, who is deeply loved by the elders, been here a lot on the past. Seeing Fran beside him looking at Grandpa Black unkindly, Lily could only take her to find Grandpa Lupin. "Professor, I heard that my father attended the Hogwarts meeting in his skirt." Lupin spit out the tea just like that. Lily's voice was not low, and at the same time, there were quite a few people who were choked. As a witness who knew the cause and effect of the incident, the half-white-haired Lupin looked at Lily with a gossip expression, shook his head and said, "How did you know about this?" Finding that Lupin didn't deny it, Lily, who discovered the new world, said excitedly, "Flander told me." Fran on the side nodded and said, "This is what I mentioned when I heard my father chatting with my sister during the summer vacation. This matter actually has a lot to do with Flander's father." Lupin suppressed a smile and said, "We were all trying to better protect your father from being discovered by Voldemort." After Lupin finished speaking, he looked at the two young professors who were newly appointed this year in the lounge. After seeing that they had no special reaction except to listen to gossip, he continued to tell the ins and outs of this incident back then. Many of the people present knew about this matter, and after so many years, it is nothing to say it now. It can be regarded as a celebrity anecdote. It's just that Professor Longbottom has been lying on the table trying to hold back a smile. He probably knows other things that are even less known to outsiders. After all, he and Potter were in the same dormitory back then. After listening to this round of past events, Fran frowned and said, "I'm afraid my father did it on purpose at the time, because every time the family took medicine, he would first agree to take the dose before giving the medicine to others." Lupin looked at Fran and said, "Flander, since your history of magic is up there, let me tell you about the inconsistencies in the textbook here." Many people who didn't know what Lupin meant were all looking at him. Lupin sorted out his thoughts, and then said to Fran, "The history of magic textbooks say that the line policy said at that meeting was proposed by Dumbledore before his death, and Harry slightly modified it. In fact, the truth of the matter is not such." Sensing everyone's suspicious gazes, Lupin smiled and continued, "At that time, Mr. Zhang made several rough plans for Dumbledore to choose, and then he brought the results of Dumbledore's selection, and used these. The outline was drawn up on the day we passed a plan. It can be said that your father was actually the main maker of the plan, and that day Harry just repeated it in his own language according to the plan." "Then why is Uncle Zhang not mentioned in the book?" Lily asked with a question mark on her head. "That's because he didn't want to take the blame." Neville Longbottom, the herbal medicine professor at the side, said, "What do you call this plan now?" "Meat grinder," someone replied. "That's right. Neville nodded and said, "After the victory, he once told me that because he is not British, if other people knew that this plan was made by him at that time, then the plan would not be carried out. It will be scrapped half the time, so he needs someone credible to take up the mantle of planner." Chapter 471 Hogwarts Conference 1. In the empty common room of the Lion Court, Harry sat alone at the table, concentrating on a stack of parchment in his hand. On the table, there was an empty plate with only a few pie crumbs left, and a half-empty glass of pumpkin juice. This was the proposal sent by Creature before lunch, along with a beef pie that Mrs. Weasley had just made. When she saw the familiar handwriting on the parchment just now, Harry's stomach couldn't help but twitched, and she couldn't help thinking about what happened in the principal's office that night. But what she didn't know was that Zhang had a quill in his hand that could imitate Loudang's handwriting. So many things had happened in the past few days that Harry was still in a trance until this morning. She finally accepted the fact that she became a girl for a while, and Zhang used his savings and gringotts to guarantee that she would not drink up all the men because of drinking this medicine, which made her feel a little relieved. As a result, she was attacked by Death Eaters during the Burrow wedding, which was expected, but she never expected that Snape would suddenly capture her. After Harley was taken away, she almost exposed her identity in the face of Snape's strong man locked up. Fortunately, Snape's trance at the last moment allowed her to escape the winged man. What Harry doesn't know is that if she runs 2 seconds later, after Malfoy finds them, she will face the dilemma of being a man on the left and right. When she came to the familiar Hogwarts headmaster's office and saw Professor McGonagall, Harry, who didn't know how to speak to some men's secrets, burst into tears for a while. When Professor McGonagall saw the clue and asked if she was Harry Potter, Harry replied with tears, "It's me, meow." When Harry couldn't figure out whether he should be called Professor McGonagall or the principal, he got stuck. Professor McGonagall frowned. Having seen Snape get a trick once, she instantly understood the current situation. It wasn't someone Zhang's trick. She changed her surname to My Meow in the future. "Potter," Professor McGonagall said after he got stuck for a while, "you take a rest here first, you will be safe here." After comforting Harry, Professor McGonagall walked behind the desk and picked up the large stack of proposals with cockroach pile on the cover that was automatically open with a snap just now. As the saying goes, fellow Taoist meow doesn't meow poor people. Anyway, Harley's arrival helped her solve a big problem. At least she didn't need to meow in front of the past principals. Before reading the plan, Professor McGonagall saw that the skirt Harry was wearing was torn, and returned to his dormitory. After sighing, Professor McGonagall opened a small clothes box, and at the bottom of the clothes box found 2 skirts that she wore when she was young and beautiful. The last time she wore these dresses was when she was on a date with her first boyfriend, right out of college. After Professor McGonagall returned to the principal's office, he handed the skirt to Harry. "Your skirt is torn, you should wear these 2 skirts first these days." At this time, Harry could only accept Professor McGonagall's kindness in a daze. Not long after, the members of the Order of the Phoenix who came to protect Harley arrived, and together with the professors who called back the school urgently, repelled a group of Death Eaters who attempted to attack Hogwarts. Just this morning, Lupin found Harley in the male dormitory of the Lion Academy, and asked her if she could attend a very important meeting tonight as a representative of the Order of the Phoenix. Harry agreed without hesitation. Separation line. After a day and a half of busy work, the Ministry of Magic finally gained a firm foothold in Hogsmeade. At the same time, Voldemort and his gang, who needed to re-establish the regime, did not show up for a day today. Only then did the Ministry of Magic and the British government have time to sit down and seriously discuss the way forward. For security and confidentiality reasons, the meeting was arranged to be held at Hogwarts. At 8 o'clock in the evening, in the Hogwarts auditorium, the tables and chairs where the students usually dine have been removed, and replaced by a huge round table in the middle of the auditorium. Around the round table, there are representatives from all parties. In addition to representatives of the British government representing the local official Ministry of Magic and the British National Security Council, the newly established International Auror Organization, and Professor McGonagall representing Hogwarts, the Order of the Phoenix also attended the meeting as a non-governmental organization. After a simple explanation, everyone expressed their understanding and support for Harry, who has become Harry. Many people asked you if Ms. Halley would have a drink after the meeting. At this time, none of the people here realized that their names would become the content that students must memorize in the future because of today's meeting. The meeting has been going on for some time, and the parties have reached consensus on some less important issues. For example, the characterization of the Death Eaters organization headed by Voldemort. If you limit your attention to the wizarding world, then they can be regarded as anti-government organizations, but now that the British government has intervened, in their view, Voldemort and his gang can only be regarded as an extreme terrorist organization, and Voldemort and his gang are not qualified as anti-government organizations. But when the meeting process came to discuss the next course of action, there was a full exchange of views among all parties involved. After all parties have their own demands, and sometimes their own interests may not necessarily meet the interests of friendly forces. The following meeting came close to the wee hours of the morning, amid the in-depth exchanges between all parties. During this extraordinary period, time is very precious, which made everyone have to cheer up and continue the meeting after a simple midnight snack and break. The meeting was arguably reopened the next day. As soon as the second session of the meeting started, Harley, who had been a mascot for several hours, suddenly took the lead, throwing out the plan made in Dumbledore's name that creature sent before lunch. At this time, Dumbledore's prestige was still there. When all the parties heard that it was a plan left by him during his lifetime, they all stopped wrangling and looked at Harry quietly. Harley took out several plans that had been prepared and distributed them to the participants, and then began to read them. Dumbledore proposed in the plan left behind that we will completely defeat the Two-Hole Socket Man and his organization from economic, political and military aspects. Meow. Harry took the plan and opened the cover of the first page. Read the preface above. In the next few minutes, Harry finished reading the foreword on the plan, while Scrimgeour and the others had already flipped through the not-so-thin plan. Everyone is well tested in copywriting, and you can know the general outline of the plan just by looking at the catalog. I think we should adjourn the meeting now, and discuss the plan left by Dumbledore when we are ready tomorrow morning. Scrimgeour proposed to everyone. With a plan framework that everyone can accept, everyone finally doesn't have to quarrel aimlessly. Now they can study the plan carefully first, and then start a new round of wrangling based on it. Therefore, Scrimgeour's proposal was unanimously supported by all parties present at the meeting. Everyone needs to go back and stay up late to study to see which parts of the plan are beneficial to themselves and which are harmful to them. Chapter 472 Hogwarts Conference 2. At this time, all parties in the UK basically have no good way to deal with Voldemort, who has come back from the ashes and made a comeback. After Scrimgeour came to power, the Ministry of Magic prepared for the resistance based on the experience of more than 10 years ago, but it was unexpected that Voldemort changed his previous approach this time. The most notable point is that now his subordinates have gathered a large number of dark wizards from various European countries and organized them effectively. This kind of approach, which was quite Grindelwald style, caught the aurors of the Ministry of Magic by surprise from the beginning. Especially the Ministry of Magic in continental Europe, which has been unhappy with the British Ministry of Magic for many years. They are all very happy to send their unstable factors to the UK in this way. The level of security at home has improved, and the position of Minister of Magic will naturally be more secure. A certain country that is willing to stumble in the United Kingdom even took the initiative to contact those dark wizards secretly, promising that if you go to the United Kingdom and never come back, the previous accounts will be cancelled. With the establishment of the International Auror Organization, countries on the European continent have reached a tacit agreement, that is, to block all these black wizards on the island and prevent them from returning to the European continent. As for what the British think, haha, don't you have the awesome Dumbledore? Facing the black wizards that could be said to be coming in a flood, Scrimgeour was in a daze. Originally, Scrimgeour cooperated with the British government to let them help him earn his reputation so that he could sit on the position of Minister of Magic. However, after the Ministry of Magic suffered several losses from the Death Eaters, Scrimgeour recognized the current situation and had to cooperate more comprehensively with the British government. As far as the British government is concerned, they have turned their attention to the domestic magical society, which is what has happened in the past few years. The information in this area is not much better than a black eye. In order to find out what happened in the corner of their yard that they hadn't paid attention to all the year round, they even had direct contact with a certain spy, and they didn't hesitate to write off his illegal bringing of contraband into the UK for many years, as long as he didn't cause trouble in ordinary people's society. Due to the lack of detailed intelligence, the British government wanted to take the initiative to attack alone, but did not have a clear goal. It could only carry out conservative passive defense and spread its limited power over the entire British land. The members of the Order of the Phoenix have always listened to Dumbledore, and after Dumbledore died, They listened to the plan he left behind during his lifetime. Dumbledore is gone, and they haven't elected a new leader yet. Now their situation is to listen to Lupin when they use their brains, and Moody's when they use their hands. Moreover, Dumbledore's previous plan was mainly to let Harry execute the beheading operation. In the face of the current situation where a full-scale war is about to break out, Lupin and the others have nothing to do. So now that Harry took out the plan that Dumbledore made before his death, it was tantamount to lighting up a guiding light in the dark. After all, commanding a battle is one thing, but organizing an all-out war is another level. One of the great wars in the wizarding world of England was the Goblin Rebellion of the 17th century, and the Ministry of Magic has become unfamiliar with how to fight a large war. Although Scrimgeour has been in order for many years, the essence of the police and the army is still different. Although the government army has professionals, it is also a big headache due to insufficient intelligence due to the secret obstruction of some diehards in the Ministry of Magic. The cooperation between the Ministry of Magic and the government forces is now limited to the tactical level. Not to mention the members of the Order of the Phoenix, it would be better to count on Voldemort to choke down a bottle of paraquat than to count on them. At present, the only person with large-scale war experience and organizational ability in the UK is the retired gravekeeper in Hogwarts. And Zhang is also incapable of formulating this kind of all-out war plan. It's okay to brag, but he has to be blind in actual operation. However, there is a golden thought behind someone who can't stand Zhang. The plan that the British party studied all night tonight was actually drawn up by the General Staff, and someone Zhang transcribed it with a quill that imitated Dumbledore's handwriting. Over the past 6 years, with the efforts of the spies represented by Zhang, the relevant departments have collected a large amount of information about the British wizarding world. Relying on this information, the relevant departments of the General Staff spent half a year formulating the plan according to the plan outline selected by Dumbledore. Therefore, there must be some private goods in this plan. If all parties in the UK make plans for the next step based on this plan, naturally, some core minds inside cannot be avoided. Naturally, some people can see these contents, but in the face of such a conspiracy, they can only grit their teeth and step on it. In the living room on the second floor of Hogsmeade's interesting cafe, Horatio Rodney threw the proposal in his hand heavily on the coffee table, then leaned back on the sofa, and sighed deeply. "What's the matter, Grandpa?" Rodney, the waiter at the coffee shop, put down the parchment in his hand, walked to the back of the sofa, and rubbed her grandpa's temples. "Is there any problem with this plan, Grandpa?" Nelson, who was also looking at the plan, asked with concern. After a while, Mr. Rodney opened his eyes and said, "This plan is definitely not written by Dumbledore. Perhaps the main framework was set by him, but many of the contents in it must have nothing to do with him. I've had several conversations with Dumbledore before, and I don't think he's going to come up with such a bloody plan." "Is there anything wrong with this plan, Your Excellency?" Wales asked suspiciously. "I don't find anything in it that is disadvantageous to us. There is no problem with the plan. Relying on this place to eliminate the enemy's vital forces and finally beheading the enemy, this can be said to be the best choice under the current circumstances," Mr. Rodney said. "If we only eliminate the two-hole socket, then the dark wizards from various countries without a unified command will scatter in England, Scotland, and Wales, and the whole island of Great Britain will fall into disaster. So we can only wipe them out first, so as to prevent these locusts from destroying our country. However, in war, people will die. It is not only the enemy who dies, but also our own people. Think about it, if these dark wizards are wiped out, how many of our own casualties will be?" Welsh and the others calculated in their hearts, but the final figure made them gasp. "Is there no other way for us?" Hood asked, frowning. 2 years ago, we could still keep these dark wizards across the English Channel, but not now." Mr. Rodney shook his head and said, "Then our fate can only be that we both suffer." Wales' complexion became very bad. Mr. Rodney said with a smile, "This plan proposes a solution for us. If we don't want to kill too many people, then we can only seek help from the international community." After Mr. Rodney finished speaking, the living room fell into silence. It is not easy to ask gods to send gods away, and it is not easy to invite foreigners to suppress bandits. Horatio Rodney has no right to decide this matter. All he can do is wait until tomorrow's meeting to discuss the plan, and then send their decision to No. Downing Street to give the Prime Minister a headache. "Who made such a plan?" Rodney asked. "It's the young man who often comes here as a guest. I guess he and Dumbledore have formed some kind of alliance." Mr. Rodney said seriously, "I'm afraid their country's power is involved behind this, although he is very good, but I don't think he's going to be able to come up with that level of planning on his own." "So what should we do?" Wales asked. "The next headache is no. Downing Street. You can learn from him and see what they want to do," Mr. Rodney said. "It seems that I have to make a little sacrifice." Wales, who is a representative of the Intelligence Department, said, "He looks pretty good, and I don't think I'm at a disadvantage." "Aren't you afraid that he thinks you're too old?" Hood joked aside, "He doesn't usually treat you like those Aurors want to eat you." "I heard from those students that he likes the older ones," Wales said to Hood. Mr. Rodney raised his eyebrows, and then asked, "Then which one of you is he usually interested in?" The four ladies present glanced at each other, then sighed at the same time, and then simultaneously pointed to Ginger and Fishcake, who were sleeping in the corner. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 473, Hogwarts Conference 3. Later, when the breakfast time was over, all the parties involved in the meeting last night sat around the round table again with their panda eyes on their faces. As the host, Professor McGonagall had to ask the kitchen to prepare a cup of espresso for everyone to refresh everyone. After drinking a cup of espresso with added ingredients, everyone present trembled and cheered up. The cheered group immediately began a frank conversation and a full exchange of opinions. Scrimgeour sighed. As an Auror who rushed to the front line in his early years, although he had been sitting in the position of Minister of Magic for a long time, he was still not used to such bladder negotiations. Scrimgeour took a sip of the unbelievably bitter coffee in the coffee cup, and with the indescribably bitter taste in his mouth, his whole body shivered, and his brain became sober instead. While the others were speaking, Scrimgeour asked Cedric, who is the secretary, in a low voice, "Do you know the recipe of this coffee? I think I can drink this coffee in my office." Cedric nodded calmly and said, "No problem, Your Excellency, you can drink it when you return to the office next time." As for the recipe, someone in Sonia avoided talking about it. There are only differences in the division of labor in revolutionary work, and there is no distinction between high and low. Arranging their work according to the characteristics of various aspects is an important topic at today's meeting. In the plan, there is very little mention of this part involving personnel arrangements. After all, this kind of issue involves you should be placed in a position prone to heavy casualties, and it is easy to cause disputes when a large number of battle losses occur. Therefore, the plan only puts forward a principle of cooperating with the existing plan to wipe out the enemy's vital forces in large numbers. As for who will go to those positions, you can decide for yourself. The plan is not official. After listening to the opinions of all parties, Scrimgeour thought for a while and said, "Everyone, just listen to me." After everyone's attention focused on him, Scrimgeour said, "Next, our battlefield can be divided into two parts, namely Hogsmeade and places outside Hogsmeade." Seeing that no one else interrupted, he continued, "Here in Hogsmeade, it will be the main battlefield for the Aurors of the Ministry of Magic. They will resist the attack of the Death Eaters here. However, this leaves very few Aurors who can travel across the UK to deal with emergencies. If the Ministry of Magic can only control Hogsmeade, and the rest of Britain is left to the Death Eaters, our Ministry of Magic will exist in name only. And we've just put a lot of effort into building a national defense system. If the wizards' alarms can't be answered, then we will lose their support. I don't want this system with great potential to work died in time." At this time, Horatio Rodney, who heard Scrimgeour's meaning, said, "We can take over this system." Before Mr. Rodney could finish his sentence, Scrimgeour gave him a he. "If this system falls into the hands of the British government, then the Magical Society will not have many secrets to speak of." Seeing that his proposal was rejected by the other party in seconds, Mr. Rodney didn't care. Anyway, this proposal was just a test. He then said without changing his face, "Or we can send someone to deal with the reports from the residents. It's just that our two sides have not done enough in sharing information. So I have a suggestion, that is, some of us go to Hogsmeade to strengthen the defense force. In this way, some Aurors drawn from the defense force and our main force can be mixed into a team to deal with the residents. We will call the police. That way, we will have a strong force to kill any Death Eaters that come within sight of the residents." After finishing speaking, Mr. Rodney picked up the coffee cup in front of him, and waited quietly for Scrimgeour's reply. Scrimgeour was thinking about the feasibility of this proposal. If so, the magical society would still be exposed to allies. Compared with the other party taking over the entire system, it would be the difference between wearing a bikini and not wearing anything at all. I think this approach is feasible, meow, and it is necessary to organize such a team. At this moment, Harry said suddenly, there are a lot of Death Eaters now, and their strength is also very strong. We can't rely on one or two fighting will completely eliminate them, meow. So we can rely on this national defense system, and dispatch superior forces to eliminate the single Death Eaters as soon as we receive the alarm. In this way, we can continue to annihilate the Dark Wizards who join the Death Eaters through countless small annihilation battles. In this way, we can accumulate small victories into big victories and achieve the goal of strategically consuming Death Eaters. We will stick to it. It can make the situation between the enemy and us favorable to us. The corners of Mr. Rodney's mouth twitched a little. He was familiar with such tactics, wasn't he? Although he has never been to the Korean peninsula, he has studied various war cases. It's just that due to the inertia of thinking, he never thought of using such a tactic in the domestic security war. It has to be said that the zero-knocking brown sugar tactic is very suitable for the situation they are currently facing, especially after he discovered the bloodletting trap in this plan early this morning. This kind of ability to consume the enemy's strength while preserving one's own strength to the maximum is an excellent choice to reduce or even avoid the final bloodletting. After figuring this out, Mr. Rodney said to Scrimgeour, Mr. Scrimgeour, I think Mr. Porter Jr.'s tactic is feasible. Scrimgeour also saw the advantage of being able to preserve himself and destroy the enemy, so he nodded and said, I also agree with Potter's method. Then we will jointly organize a mobile force to carry out this plan. John Clark, the captain of the Rainbow Squad who has never been involved in the wrangling within the UK, said at this time, my team members and I can also join this team. We can serve as a reserve when support is needed. The team went to support. Scrimgeour nodded, and agreed that after the meeting, the three parties would individually refine the details of the plan before starting to arrange another group of people. Mr. Lupin, I suggest that the next mission of your Order of the Phoenix is to protect Hogwarts and Potter, as well as to collect and deliver information. Scrimgeour said to Lupin, you have an advantage in this regard. Lupin knew that Harry was the biggest card left by Dumbledore, and Dumbledore also meant this in the last letter he wrote to the Order of the Phoenix during his lifetime. He and Black returned to Hogwarts to teach next semester. It is for the sake of protecting Harley, so Lupin agreed to Scrimgeour's suggestion after thinking about it. And Hogwarts is the best arrangement. Over the years, Hogwarts Castle and its surroundings have already laid layers of defense in advance. Professor McGonagall only needs to strictly guard the door to ensure the safety of the students in school. After arranging the work of all parties, it was time for lunch. After everyone packed up the notebooks and other stationery and documents on the table, Professor McGonagall waved his wand, and the next moment the round table was filled with rich lunches. Chapter 474 Hogwarts Conference 4. Sun Tzu said, the method of employing troops is to drive 1,000 four-wheeled chariots, to ride 1,000 leather chariots, to carry 100,000 armors, and to feed food for 1,000 miles. The internal and external expenses, the use of guests, the materials of glue and paint, and the decoration of the chariots and armors cost thousands of gold a day. Then 100,000 teachers will be raised. In layman's terms, wars cost a lot of money. Whether you are a wizard or a muggle, the truth is the same. Therefore, in addition to military operations, it is also necessary to attack Voldemort and his gang economically. Due to someone's reasons, the economic situation of Voldemort's gang was not optimistic from the beginning. The no money bag among the Death Eaters is not only badly damaged, but the head of their family should now plow the sugarcane fields thousands of miles away to fertilize and prepare for planting, which makes the current economic situation of the Death Eaters even worse. Although the Death Eaters ransacked several families under the guidance of some reports a few years ago, and the spoils they harvested could make them breathe a sigh of relief, but the political impact caused by this incident was so bad that they spent 10 times as much money as the spoils are irreparable. Now that Voldemort and his gang have occupied the original side of the Ministry of Magic, their next step is to reorganize the regime of the pseudo-Ministry of Magic, and this will also cost a lot of money. At least the salary must be enough. If the Death Eaters cannot capture Hogsmeade quickly, then their next move must be to compete for and control the Ministry of Magic's financial resources and trade channels. Scrimgeour was decisive after roughly analyzing the economic situation of the puppet Ministry of Magic. Said, "The Order of the Phoenix couldn't intervene in this matter, and the venue became a fighting ring between the Ministry of Magic and the British government." Mr. Rodney didn't know much about the sources of the Ministry of Magic's finances, so he asked, "Are you sure to cut off the funds flowing to the two-hole socket?" Scrimgeour nodded, and said, "Our financial revenue has two main parts. One part is business taxes, and the other part is tariffs on import and export trade. In terms of business taxes, the taxes on Diagon Alley, Nocturne Alley and Hogsmeade Commercial Street account for a huge part. Now that Hogsmeade is in our hands, Diagon Alley is a key point we want to fight for. We have sent people to persuade all stores in Diagon Alley except Gringotts to temporarily relocate to Hogsmeade in the near future. Come. Those shops scattered all over the UK, we plan to arrest the tax collectors of the other party to prevent the Death Eaters from obtaining funds. The only difficulty we have is the shops in Nocturne Alley, they are bound to fall on each other." Speaking of this, Scrimgeour felt a little helpless. Dark wizards gathered in Nocturne Alley, and it was inevitable that they would fall to Voldemort, and he didn't dare to let these shops enter the Hogsmeade defense circle. "What about tariffs on import and export trade?" Mr. Rodney continued. "This point has basically been resolved." Scrimgeour said, "The Department of International Magical Cooperation contacted the Ministries of Magic of various countries immediately, and they all supported us, and the customs duties will be paid to the tax officials we sent." Scrimgeour felt his mouth dry after talking so much, so he took a sip of tea from the teacup in front of him. The financial revenue of the Ministry of Magic is naturally more than this, but what can be said here is basically things that are easy to find out, like taxes. Mr. Rodney also knew that now is not the time to break the casserole and ask the end of some things, so he ignored the question and turned to Scrimgeour. "We think that the trade agreement between our two sides on grain, daily necessities and other commodities continue to be limited. We guarantee that there will not be any trade relationship with the authorities of the double-hole socket. At the same time, we hope that the two sides can further cooperate to crack down on possible smuggling." After listening to the other party's assurance, a rare smile appeared on Scrimgeour's face. "With food in hand, don't panic. As long as the daily necessities such as food and cloth imported from Muggle society can be controlled by the Ministry of Magic, he is confident that he can win the neutral faction among British wizards to his side." Under the temptation of food, he did not believe that the merchants in Diagon Alley would not move to Hogsmeade. "If you support the orthodox Ministry of Magic, you will have food, but if you support the fake Ministry of Magic, you will be hungry. It's as simple as that." And NBSP, after Scrimgeour and Mr. Rodney discussed a few more related issues, the economic issue was settled. After discussing military and economic matters, it is impossible for the Ministry of Magic to let other people intervene in the remaining political matters. In this regard, if necessary, a small number of people can be called for a meeting to communicate. Speaking of this, the work that needs to be coordinated by all parties has basically been completed, and the details of the next cooperation do not need to be discussed by the bosses in person. After the bosses have discussed the general framework and pointed out the way forward, the rest just leave things to the people below. After the meeting, the personnel from all parties hurriedly left Hogwarts, and they needed to implement the relevant decisions of today's meeting as soon as possible. In this way, Hallie is the most idle person in Hogwarts. Her task now is to stay in Hogwarts obediently and not run around. At this time, there was still some time before dinner, and Harry, who had been sitting in the seat all day, decided to take a walk outside the castle to move his stiff body. Today's weather is not good, clouds cover the sun, making Hogwarts at a high altitude feel a bit chilly. After greeting Professor McGonagall and leaving the castle, Harry walked towards Dumbledore's tomb. Today is the first time Hallie has been here since the funeral. Harry saw the tomb with a bouquet of wildflowers picked from the edge of the Forbidden Forest. She was surprised to find that there was an old man cleaning the fallen leaves around the cemetery with a magic wand. Harley had only seen portraits of Grindelwald when he was young and middle-aged in books and chocolate frog pictures, which made her unable to recognize the dying old man in front of her. Grindelwald, who was cleaning and playing with fallen leaves, just raised his head to look at Harley, then ignored her, and continued to concentrate on cleaning the surrounding lawns and flower beds. Harry put the somewhat humble bouquet in front of Dumbledore's tombstone, and then stood there quietly. Grindelwald has cultivated several gardens around the cemetery these days, and then planted some flowers. At this time, his mother planted flowers in the backyard of his house. He always liked to sit by the flowers and read a book on a sunny afternoon. Grindelwald used magic to eliminate the pests in the flowers, and said to Dumbledore after mourning Harry, who walked to his side, said, "If Harley had a higher vision, she would have discovered that the spells used by Grindelwald to clean up the bugs were all killing curses." "You're Dumbledore's relative, meow?" Harry asked. "Yes, and no," Grindelwald replied without raising his head. "Excuse me, what's your name, meow?" Harry continued to ask. She became curious about the man who guarded Dumbledore's grave. Grindelwald just shook his head, not wanting to answer Harry's question. Seeing this, Harry stopped disturbing him and walked to the flower bed on the other side of the cemetery to learn how to clean up pests and weeds. The time for dinner was ready, and Harry, who was in the garden in front of him, was going to return to Hogwarts for dinner after the situation was over. At this moment, Greenwald asked, "What's your name, little girl?" Facing the person who didn't know the details, Harley still reported her pseudonym in her current form, and she replied, "My name is Lucy Scamander." "Is Newt Scamander your relative?" Grindelwald asked calmly. "He's my grandpa meow," Harry replied according to the script. The next moment, Harry felt that the old wizard in front of him was looking at him like two bayonets stabbing at him. Trembling all over, Harry realized that facing the old wizard was like facing Voldemort. Harry's dam turned into a stickmate at this moment, and at this moment a figure suddenly appeared between the two of them. "Your Excellency, this is actually Harry Potter. He just used a little disguise and another identity to avoid a mysterious man." Professor McGonagall, who arrived in time, explained to Grindelwald in a cold sweat. Chapter 475 The International Federation of Wizards wants to help Lafayette suppress bandits? Exclamation mark. In the evening, a heavy rain that came and went quickly washed away the dust floating in the air, and at the same time, it also cleared away the dry heat of summer. In Yuewanton Park, many people are walking and jogging on the road beside the lake. Zhang Su and Fu Rong are accompanying Zhang Su's grandparents for 100 steps after dinner. Zhang Su's grandparents have already retired, and after returning to work for a few years, the two elders also followed the example of their in-laws and started a journey to travel around the world. When they think of it, watching the world introduced by the host and saying the variety show is really amazing, they will go wherever they think it is fun. The two elders had just played in Yellowstone Park that day. On the plane returning to China, they were told by a wildlife photographer sitting next to them about the imminent start of the spectacular migration of animals in the African grasslands. They moved to go immediately. Thoughts on a trip to Africa. While they were discussing how to go to Africa, when they walked out of the airport, they happened to run into Zhang Su and Fu Rong, who had returned from France. It's just that Zhang Su was called to a meeting as soon as he came back, so he had to let Fu Rong accompany the elders to rest in the house Zhang Su bought here for a few days. Zhang Su could not come out of the compound until after the meeting this afternoon, and invited his grandparents to have a meal outside before going for a walk in Yuewanton Park next to him. While the whole family was blowing the cool night breeze and talking about family affairs, the cell phone in Zhang Su's pocket rang. Seeing Zhang Su give a serious a few times and then hang up the phone, Fu Rong asked, "What's the matter?" Zhang Su sighed, nodded and said, "The higher-ups want me to rush back to the meeting." "Then you go to the meeting first." Zhang Su's grandfather said to him, "Let's go to Hugo Temple to eat some wow, donkey rolling, pea yellow, elephant nose cake, senzi twist, hemp ball, coke ring, noodle tea, then go back." Zhang Su, who has been used to being so hurt by his grandfather for more than 10 years, nodded with a calm heart, said a few words to Fu Rong, and left. Seeing the back of Zhang Su leaving, and turning her head to see the slightly melancholy expression on Fu Rong's face, Grandma said to Fu Rong, "Just like his father, he never has a peaceful day all year round. Thank you for your hard work." "It's okay." Fu Rong smiled and shook her head and said, "It will be fine when he comes back next year after this year's work is over. You are also a strong child." Grandma said to Fu Rong, "After a few years you have your own business, he should also taste what it is like to wait for someone to come home." On the other side, Zhang Su found a place where no one was around, and came to a place 500 meters outside the gate of the courtyard in the suburbs of Beijing with a BIU, and then walked quickly to the courtyard. After entering the meeting room, Zhang Su came to a seat. Some people in the meeting room had already arrived, and some people were coming from various places one after another. At this time, a palm was patted on Zhang Su's shoulder, and someone said to him, "Xiao Zhang, I'm sorry to disturb you to accompany my wife." Zhang Su turned his head and said to Mr. Zhao, "It's okay, we should be the ones who should be embarrassed. We disturbed your old companions. Please always accept us young people's triple apology. Our husband and wife are fine. We are taking a walk in the summer palace after we have eaten our fill." Elder Zhao said to Zhang Su, "I'm afraid I'll disturb your little Bai Sheng's newlyweds. Walk 100 steps after a meal and live to 99 years old. The elderly should exercise properly." Zhang Su said apologetically. An old man over 100 years old did not speak, but just waved his hand, and the pen Zhang Su placed on the table flew up, and then sprayed ink on Zhang Su's face. There was a tinge of envy in the laughter of everyone in the office. To be able to know Mr. Zhao from the Central Advisory Committee well enough to make such a joke, for people in the officialdom, it was almost like getting on the promotion rocket. As soon as the laughter fell, Elder Zhou, wearing a military uniform and holding a cropped paper bag, walked into the conference room. With his arrival, the atmosphere in the conference room suddenly became serious. Mr. Zhou sat next to Mr. Zhao, then took out several documents from the cropped paper bag and handed them to Mr. Zhao, then said, "We just received information that the International Federation of Wizards is studying whether to organize a team went to England to support the Ministry of Magic against the pseudo-Ministry of Magic. At present, the preliminary consensus of the International Federation of Wizards is that all countries should prepare first. If the British Ministry of Magic asks them for help, they will do so at the earliest opportunity." In a short period of time, elite forces were sent to support the United Kingdom. At the same time, there was a voice in the International Federation of Wizards, which invited us to join this multinational force. Many countries responded to this voice. As soon as Mr. Zhou's voice fell, the people in the office made a surprised sound. Zhang Su was slightly surprised and then relieved. It is not surprising that the International Federation of Wizards made the first decision, and the second voice did not come out of nowhere. As for the source of this news, Zhang Su suppressed his curiosity, and don't ask about some things that he shouldn't know. "Xiao Zhang, you know the situation there best, so please tell me your opinion first." Elder Zhao, who presided over the meeting, first called Zhang Su's name. Zhang Su sorted out his thoughts, and then said, "It is very possible that the International Federation of Wizards will organize an army. I suspect that the first promoter of this proposal is the deceased Dumbledore. I guess Dumbledore calculated the consequences of this plan after seeing the outline of our plan. Although he can sacrifice himself and others in order to destroy Voldemort, it is impossible for him to allow British wizards to burst their arteries. Bloodshed like that. He destroyed Voldemort to protect the wizarding world in Britain. If the power of the wizarding world in Britain fell off a cliff in order to eliminate Voldemort, it would be contrary to his core goal. So he needs some other countries to come bleed for Britain. As far as I know, Dumbledore sent many letters in the last moments of his life, and he probably arranged this matter at this time. Britain, whether it's the government or the Ministry of Magic, is considered an established power. As an established power, it has its own face to maintain. I estimate that if the British side is forced to seek international help, their blood will not be shed much. If the reinforcements are proposed by the International Federation of Wizards, then the British side will get a step up, and they will most likely accept the reinforcements sent by the International Federation of Wizards in advance. After taking a sip of tea, Zhang Su continued, "Besides, for the International Federation of Wizards, the shadow in their hearts is not Voldemort, who never left England, but Grindelwald, who once roamed across Europe and America. After Grindelwald disappeared, the Magic Council of the United States immediately sent someone to ask me who was most likely to see him for the last time to ask for relevant information, which shows the status of Grindelwald in their hearts. Previously, the Ministry of Magic of various countries in the European continent believed that with Dumbledore in Britain, Voldemort could not cause too much trouble, so they indulged and even organized domestic dark wizards to go to England to join Voldemort. But they didn't expect that Dumbledore was beaten to death by Death Eaters not long ago, so the Ministry of Magic of various countries panicked. Without Dumbledore's suppression, Voldemort's strength has greatly increased, and he captured the British Ministry of Magic without much effort. No one can guarantee whether he will follow Grindelwald's old path of sweeping Europe. So now the idea of the European Ministry of Magic is to drag all those dark wizards on the island of Great Britain as much as possible. It would be best if they can die on the island. If the British Ministry of Magic is completely finished, then European countries will have to face Mad Dog's situation. Therefore, the International Federation of Wizards must do everything possible to keep the British Ministry of Magic." After finishing a long speech, Zhang Su gulped down the tea in the teacup in front of him. During the meeting earlier, Zhang Su introduced the power of all parties in the UK, and the participants who already knew it agreed with Zhang Su's analysis. So it seems that it is imperative for the International Federation of Wizards to organize a coalition force. I think so. On the one hand, Voldemort has become powerful, and on the other hand, his actions are a serious violation of the international law of secrecy. As long as someone jumps out to pick a head, other countries will inevitably respond. In the conference room, Zhang Su kept answering various questions raised by other people. After more than half an hour of questioning and answering, all the participants had a better understanding of the plans of the International Federation of Wizards. So what do you think about the invitation of the International Federation of Wizards? Zhang Su was named again. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.